Alright guys, so this is the official commentary video for Hotshot Season 1. This is also my 200 subscribers special. I know it's a little bit late, but there was a little bit of a delay getting the second episode of Season 2 out. But now that it's out, I can finally do this commentary video. I just want to start off by saying, because this is my 200 subscriber special, I want to give a huge thank you to everybody that has subscribed to the channel ever since I started it. It doesn't matter if you've been subscribed since the very beginning or if you just subscribed yesterday. I appreciate all of you all the same. It is support that I get on this series especially that keeps the motivation to continue alive. So definitely thank you to everybody who has subscribed, and thank you to everybody who has left me comments, especially on the Hotshot series. It's motivation, like that's the motivation to continue the series. Just seeing all the supportive comments and seeing all the people theorizing what's going to happen in the next episode, it really makes my day. So what I'm going to be doing here is sort of revealing some behind-the-scenes stuff, some referential stuff, any sort of foreshadowing, all of the little like bits and pieces that you might have, like all the little details that you might have missed on the first watch through. I'm going to be revealing all that here. So if you haven't watched the first season, I highly recommend doing it now. I've given several opportunities, whether it be with the complete first season video, whether it be with the playlist. So this is your guys' last chance to watch the series before I reveal everything and before I spoil the first 2 episodes of Season 2. So we'll just go ahead and start off with a prologue. I don't have much to say about it other than the fact that it was supposed to be uploaded along with the first episode as sort of you get the prologue and then you get the first episode. I didn't do that because I thought the video would be too long and I didn't want to, you know, bore anybody on the first watch through and give a negative impression or anything, that sort of thing. So I did it separately, which in hindsight, I'm wishing that you kind of did it the way you see here, as you saw the prologue ended and we had the intro sequence. But to talk about the intro sequence really fast, Transformer by Gnarls Barkley is the song I use. I use the instrumental version so that way I don't get copyright claimed in all of my videos. The only exception that I made is in the prologue. I decided if I'm going to get any of my videos flagged for copyright, it's going to be the least important one, that being the prologue. And then we have the Foolish Insects line, which is a throwback to G1. Divide and Conquer was the first episode I ever watched, so I wanted to get a reference to that in here. And then we have all of the Decepticons and the battle and stuff like that. So yeah, not really a whole lot to say about this intro sequence. Originally what happened, especially in the first attempt that I took at the Hotshot series, what was supposed to happen was all of the Decepticons, specifically the Seekers, were projections that were being ignited by Red Alert, Red Alert, Optimus, and Ironhide. They were kind of setting them up to test Hotshot a little bit. I decided to scrap that idea this time, just because I thought it would be more authentic to have him, take on the real deal, and to also have him get dropped at the very first time, so that way when he eventually gets better and better and better, it'd be like, okay, so we're seeing his progress. He got dropped on the first episode and he got kidnapped in the second episode. Now that we actually see his growth and we actually see him standing up for himself and standing up to his opponent in a meaningful way, there'll be some character growth, and we'll have a reason to root for this character, if you catch me. I knew it was kind of a risk. Like, I knew it would be kind of a risk to have Hotshot, get dropped in this episode and get kidnapped in the second episode, because he both kind of got beat. And then the third episode, which I'll talk about later, I knew it was a risk because, I wanted to give the audience a reason to root for this character. And, I read online that, a lot of people don't tend to root for main characters if they have a lot of things, like, happen to them. And I definitely didn't want to go that route, so that was kind of the thought process behind, doing away with the projections. Like, I didn't want the main character to get dropped by projections at the first episode. So that's kind of why I had the real deal. And then we have Ironhide, the sort of like antagonistic teammate, Optimus, the mentor character, and then Red Alert, the supporting character, and then Smokescreen, as we'll see later. Come to think of it, I don't think any of the Decepticons were mentioned by name in this episode, other than Barricade and Starscream, of course. And then we have Megatron, which we're going to see here in a minute. But Starscream, Barricade, and Soundwave, I think, are the only ones that are name-dropped. Skywarp Thundercracker, I'm not sure about. Impactor, he definitely wasn't. I remember not naming him in the script at all. We kind of just see him, and he's here. And we know he's a bad guy of some sort. I'll talk about him a little bit later, though. There's actually a little bit more lore that I have surrounding the Hotshot series, and particularly the branding and the naming and stuff. Originally, this series was called Leadfoot, a Transformer Tale, and the main character was Power Core Combiner's Leadfoot, which you guys saw in the Megatron's Makeover video, as well as the Firework video, and there were a few others that I used him in. But I ended up, at the time that I did that, I didn't really have a whole lot of, like, youthful young characters. I didn't really have any other figures that would pass as the youthful young character. So Power Car Combiners Leadfoot was the best I could do. The reason that I quit that series was because I just didn't have a direction for it to go in. I just started making shit up as I went along, and that really didn't work out. I needed to have a plan, and, I had a plan, for Hotshot, which is why I was successful, specifically this time, reaching the second season. Whereas the earlier attempt that I took at this series, I think I made it all the way to episode 11, I think it was. Or it was episode 12 here, because it's a new episode here, and I'll talk about that later too. I made it all the way to Rising Darkness Part 1. So, in the old attempt of Hotshot, you can view every episode except for Rising Darkness Part 2 and Getting Into Gear. And I'll explain why that is later. But right now we have Barricade, we have Soundwave, we're going to see in a minute. Barricade, obviously the kind of skeptical one. It's pretty clear he has beef with Starscream, and that will be expanded upon a little bit later. And then here comes Soundwave. I don't really have much for him to do other than kind of just look cool and, have the really awesome vocoder voice. So the vocoder voice that I have for Soundwave it's just the voice effect I have for the Autobots pitch shifted multiple ways. I never really got around mastering the Audacity effect. I might look into that a little bit later just to have a better Soundwave voice, but I like the Soundwave voice. I think it kind of sets me apart from everybody else that kind of uses the same. Because what everybody does is they take the vocodes, they use Audacity to sort of filter it, and I could never figure out how the hell to use Audacity. I don't know if I'm just technologically dumbass or what, but Audacity was always just a really big fucking pain in the ass to use. I don't know why, but I could never get the hang of it. So I kind of just decided, fuck Audacity, I'll just do my own thing. And lo and behold, here we are. And then here's Megatron again, and then there's this funny little tank thing. It's missing its barrel, but luckily I was able to acquire a new one with the barrel. And then here's a little nod to G1. If you just saw Thundercracker turned into Starscream, that was kind of a nod to all of the G1 animation errors, especially with the Seekers. I don't know if any of you guys saw that Unclubbable video where Megatron's calling all of the Seekers, he's calling them all Starscream, and the big punchline was, oh, well, I'm colorblind. It was really funny. Just kind of a nod to the G1 animation errors. There will be a couple more times where this happens, particularly in Triplet Trouble, which I'm not going to talk about in this video, unless if I have time. But because it's technically non-canon, which, let me talk about Triplet Trouble a little bit now. So, the backstory behind that episode was, in the original version, Leadfoot, A Transformer Tale, that was originally episode 3, and I wanted to have a video where the Autobots lose, kind of in the beginning, to showcase, Leadfoot's inexperience with the Autobots and kind of his inexperience as a fighter. Right, so I had the Triple Trouble episode. The reason that didn't work was because the episode prior, I was using the Generations Armada Starscream figure from 2014, but I had also just gotten the Siege figure, so I kind of tried to find a reason for Starscream to get an upgrade. So I just had him attack Megatron in his dormancy, and he kind of just turned into Siege Starscream. It was a total ass pull, and I wasn't really happy with that. Hence the reason why the Leadfoot series is no longer available for viewing on the old channel. There were also just too many Decepticon characters. I had Knockout, Barricade, Demolisher, Cyclonus, pretty much everybody. So I had no idea that I was going to add the Seekers. That's one of the reasons why Triplet Trouble got deleted from the original run. And as the next episode, you're going to see that in a minute. But let's talk a little bit about Smokescreen here. He wasn't talking when you saw him before. And it was pretty clear he's not a fan of Ironhide and his, just being a gigantic spawn of a glitch, I guess we could say. Ironhide, I kind of based him off of... Actually, I feel like all these characters kind of based off of somebody, in my personal life that I can relate to. Ironhide's kind of based off of every single, bully character that I've been... Because there are a lot of, he's kind of based on workplace bullies, if you know what I mean. There's always, that one asshole at your job that you could never get along with. Ironhide's kind of based off of that, honestly. Kind of based off the workplace bully. And Smokescreen, the one supporting character. And Red Alert, he's kind of like the secondary mentor character. So you have Optimus, the main mentor, Red Alert, the secondary mentor, and Smokescreen, the supportive best friend, and Ironhide, the antagonistic jerk. And then we'll talk about Punch/Counterpunch later. That's kind of just the main character breakdown, for now at least. Or at least for the Autobots. We'll talk about the Decepticons a little bit in the next episode here, Reality Check, which I feel like they get a lot more of a showcase here, whereas the first episode is kind of to establish the main cast that we're supposed to be rooting for. So obviously, this is a direct continuation of the previous episode, and this is a direct follow-up of, oh yeah, we're going to go do some training. Here's the big open area, red alerts here, smoke screens here, and then because of the Ironhide, I needed that gag, which is of course a reference to Transformers Prime, and here's Skywarp. So let me talk about this a little bit. This was inspired by episode 9 of Transformers Armada, where we have originally what happened, because in the first attempt of Hotshot, seen on the old channel, I used Armada Cyclonus instead. The reason I cut him was because I hated doing his voice. I could never do the psychotic laughter, which, I mean, you need that for Armada Cyclonus. It's just, you need that. You also need to have him alongside Demolisher. A matter of fact, Skywarp and Thundercracker were supposed to be Lugnut and Blitzwing instead, just because I love those characters. The reason I did not end up going with that idea is because I couldn't find a good animated inspired Blitzwing character. I know there's the one from, I think it was Power of the Primes. I don't remember. But there was one with it wasn't the original one, which you can get for triple digits on eBay, which I wasn't going to fucking do, because why would I do that? But there was I think the Power of the Primes Blitzwing with the changing faces. But I didn't get that one because the transformation was a bit crazy from what I've heard. The Reveal the Shield Lugnut, the only big Lugnut that actually exists, was also $130, which I was like, hell no, I'm not doing that. So Thundercracker and Skywarp it is. I also didn't think that, their crazy humor was appropriate for this series. Because, yeah, even though it has kind of a lighter tone, especially you've heard it on the show before, the more arcadey background music. Oh, and speaking of animated, here's Bulkhead and Bumblebee. Give the boys from Animated a little bit of a cameo, which it wouldn't be the last time because, they cameoed in episode 5, I think. Oh, no, 4, when Optimus is giving the backstory, which I'll kind of talk about that a little bit later. But anywho, the series was supposed to have a little bit of a lighter tone because I wanted to sort of blend humor with seriousness. Kind of like shows like Teen Titans and BoJack Horseman, in my opinion, did it perfectly. So it's kind of a nod to that where, we've got some really dark, some really heavy moments, especially with Smokescreen at the end of the season. But we've also got some humorous moments, like you guys just saw Thundercracker and Skywarp bumping into each other. I didn't need to include that, but I did. I thought it'd be funny. We have Hotshot getting captured, which, again, this was inspired by episode 9, the chase scene with Rad and Cyclonus. I ended up cutting Cyclonus because, again, I hated doing his voice. I also didn't want this to be too similar to Armada, especially with the Wheeljack / Rampage arc that we're going to have pretty soon. So yeah, I just wanted to have the Seekers because I like the Seekers and I wanted an excuse to include them in the series. So this is kind of a showcase episode for the Seekers, specifically Thundercracker and Skywarp. I kind of dumbed them down a little bit to be kind of like dumbass, dense-headed, just idiot villains. Almost, I kind of wanted to play in that trope without making them irritating, like Demolisher and Snowcat from Energon, specifically after they got their upgrades. I didn't find them funny at all. While I did kind of like Snowcat's design, I didn't really find them funny. And I kind of wanted to... I wanted to make characters that were funny without being annoying. Like, I was talking to somebody about this in a Discord server recently, where the best way to... one of the reasons why I don't like B-127 from Transformers 1 is because he was irritating to the audience. The best way to write a good comic relief is to make them irritating to the other characters, but not the audience. Which is why I did not want to use Armada Cyclonus or Demolisher, but I also didn't really want to use Blitzwing or Lugnut because I didn't really feel like their style of humor would be appropriate for the series. Especially with the darker stuff. Going off of my very loose memory of the third season of Transformers Animated, I think the funny stuff with specifically with Blitzwing and Lugnut started to kind of fade away a little bit as the series got darker and darker. Granted, it was still there, but I don't feel like it was as frequent as it was in the first and especially the second season when they were very, very prominent. But anyways, we have this banter session with the Decepticons. We have Impactor and Barricade being the two skeptical ones. Obviously, Impactor is going to be skeptical because he's an Autobot double agent. But Barricade, that's just kind of his personality, or the personality I wrote for him. So yeah, this was, again, this is kind of just a showcase episode for the Decepticons. Not really a whole lot to discuss for this scene. It's kind of just your average, transform and roll out scene. But yeah, we've got the insignia transition again, obviously inspired by G1, but with the Armada insignia transition audio cues. And then we have a little bit more banter. Not really a whole lot to add on here, just the your mama joke. Just trying to, blend some humor and some... just wanted to get some humor in there. And we do have the sort of like arcadey, like goofier background music. I've noticed that a lot of Transformers fan projects, a lot of them have like really dark, a lot of them seem like really dark on surface level. I feel like this, especially like having the more arcadey background music, kind of like sets me, like the more arcadey, like retro feeling background music. I feel like that kind of sets me apart from most of the other creators. If you know what I mean. I don't know if anybody knows what I'm talking about. I'm kind of just rambling here. But I really don't have much to say about this scene. It's kind of just, just a fight scene. Your average, everyday Transformers fight scene. Here we got the crane arm gimmick with smokescreen. Also, the reason why he was in vehicle mode in this scene particularly is because fight scenes with him they're a little bit difficult to animate because of how top-heavy he is. I recently got the Universe version of Armada Smokescreen where he's blue and he comes with the purple Decepticon version of Armada Hoist. Ransack, I think his name is. I actually have a hard time standing up my second copy of Armada Smokescreen because I got it secondhand on eBay, and I think it's the left foot? Yeah, it's the left foot that's a little bit loose, so he can't really stand up very well. So yeah, I decided that... Yeah, so sorry, I'm not really sure where I'm going with that. But yeah, blue smokescreen can't stand up very easily. So I have him in vehicle mode in this scene just so I wouldn't really have to animate with him. I know that's kind of dumb. Like, I guess you, especially considering the standpoint of, oh yeah, why even include him if he's going to be difficult to animate with? Which, I mean, I really like Armada Smokescreen. I think he's my favorite incarnation of the character. I will say this, though, and I don't really feel like I kind of helped with the situation. One problem I had with Armada Smokescreen in the original show was that he didn't really do much for the series other than die. I think Ultra Primal pointed that out in her video review of Transformers Animated... Or no, not Animated, Armada. I think it was the review where he debuts, where she said that, she didn't really like him because he didn't really do much for the series other than die. And, I kind of agree with that. I don't feel like Smokescreen was very fleshed out in Armada. Oh, and then here's the Triplet Seekers changing colors again, even though it was for a split second. So yeah, it was for a split second that time, and just to sort of do the entire flashbang effect. So yeah, that's kind of... And then Hotshot's free, even though everybody, kind of came to his rescue. And this was the other thing that I was talking about earlier when it came to Hotshot. Especially when it came to the... I guess it kind of came to the utilization of his character and how, something happened to him in this episode and something happened to him in the previous episode and something's going to happen to him in the episode following. But more on that later. Now, here's the first little bit of foreshadowing. So, Impactor, the speech that he's giving in this line right here. Actually, there are two bits of foreshadowing. The first one is... the voice effect that he uses. The first one, the more obvious one, is the voice effect that he has when he's speaking this line. It's the same as the Autobots, which was foreshadowing to when he eventually joins the Autobots at the beginning of the second season. And the second one, which is a little bit harder to catch, he uses the words grapple and hoist in his dialogue, which is foreshadowing to when Grapple and Hoist join when Grapple and Hoist join the main cast. So that episode is already up by the time you see this. Right now, I'm currently in the editing process. But that episode is up right now, so if you haven't seen it, then you probably should have because I just spoiled it. But yeah, that was the first little bit of foreshadowing that I wanted to point out. Oh, and a second bit, there was another one before that I forgot to mention. So in the monologue, the one where he goes, like in the very end of the first episode where he goes, I've been waiting my entire life for this. I've even left teammates to die. That was foreshadowing to the Wheeljack/Rampage arc. I forgot to point that out. I am sorry I'm talking a little bit rapidly. I am watching this video at 1.5 speed. That's because the entire season, the complete first season video, that was 3.5 hours long, and quite frankly, I don't think I have 3.5 hours worth of material to actually talk about in this video. So it is moving a little bit fast, and it is a little bit fast, you know, especially for me to keep up with, so I'm trying to make sure I get everything. But yeah, at the end of the first episode where there's that little monologue that ends with, oh yeah, this is the beginning of my tale, there actually is some foreshadowing in there with the Rampage / Wheeljack arc that we're going to talk about later. But then there's also the foreshadowing with Impactor joining the Autobots with the voice effect and by using Hoist and Grapple, because technically they were summoned by Impactor, and that's the reason why they joined the main cast. As well as the Autobot Intel stuff. Originally, well, actually, I'll get to that later. I'll get to that a little bit later, maybe when I talk about Season 2 in this format, because I haven't really decided what direction I'm going to take it in yet, but Red Alert mentions that Hoist and Grapple are part of Cybertron Intel. I kind of just, what do you call them? When he listed off the names, I kind of just had him list off names. I'll talk about that later when we get to it, but that's not going to be for a few more episodes. Controversy. This is an episode that, I'm going to be honest with, I'm not happy with. I'm really not happy with the way this episode turned out. Before I get to why, here's another little Easter egg. The Rainmakers, again from the G1 episode Divide and Conquer. Those were just stock images that I found online because I don't actually have them, though I am trying to get them. I've been looking around see if I can get the Rainmakers for a low price, because I remember that they retailed at Target as an exclusive for $80. I don't know how sought after they are today, especially because the what was it? The Cybertron Seeker Siege mold, the Siege Seeker mold was milked into absolute oblivion. Like, there were Seekers coming out left and right. There was fucking Nacelle, Hotlink, Sunstorm, I think. There was that fucking green guy, I forget what his name was. But yeah, no, the Siege Seeker mold, I think, was beaten into the ground. So, I'm not sure how valuable the Rainmakers are today, but I'm trying to get the Rainmakers so I can maybe have them cameo again. But they cameoed here as a little referential bit in the very first scene. This is another obvious Easter egg. A lot of the Easter eggs here they're really fucking obvious, honestly. But anyways, back to the episode. So, this is the infamous Who is Megatron video where Hotshot makes a dumbass out of himself, and he asks, who is Megatron? And, the Seekers and Barricade laugh at him, and Impactor is like, these bots or whatever, they agitate me. And then, this is the first of many times, Hotshot gets dropped by Impactor. And here we have the cons kind of cheering him on. Is this where they laugh at him? I don't think so. Yeah, I think... Oh, yeah. No, he's still getting beaten up. Oh, yeah, no, because he helps him up, and then he gets laughed at, I think. But yeah, no, we have the Impactor arc, and we have Hotshot, getting dropped, like absolutely dropped by Impactor. And, not really a whole hell of a lot to say about this scene either. It's just Hotshot getting dropped. So I guess I'll go ahead and talk about why I don't really like this episode in comparison to the rest of the episode. And that is because of the conversation... Excuse me. That is because of the conversation you guys are about to see with Hotshot and Smokescreen coming up in just a moment. I'll sort of break it down a little bit now. Or actually, no, I'll wait until we get there. Just because there is another thing that I want to talk about in this scene in particular. Other than... Other than the cons taking pity on Hotshot for not knowing who Megatron is, because that was Optimus Prime's greatest achievement, and Starscream, even though he was seen laughing at them, he's like, go destroy them anyways. But they were like, nah, we feel bad for him. Let's take pity on him and spare him. And then Impactor's just like, what the fuck is wrong with these guys? So yeah, that's that scene, and he's like, Optimus is like, you okay, Hotshot? And he's like, no. Because he just got humiliated. Like, he wasn't with the Resistance very long after this, or up to this point, and he just got humiliated. And then here we get the first appearance of Punch. Somebody in the comments speculated that this version of Punch, or this would be my version of Armada Sideways, which in the original version of Hotshot, it was the original Armada Sideways. The reason I did away with that was because A, the figure broke, which was actually seen in the old videos, and 2, I just kind of like the transforming gimmick with punch/counterpunch better than I like it with sideways, since you need both mini-cons, and if you don't have them, you're screwed for the transformation gimmick. It was also a little bit easier to manage with punch/counterpunch. So yeah, that's why I have punch instead of sideways for this series, but to the person who commented that on the original upload of this video, you were absolutely right. But anyways, the conversation with Hotshot and Smokescreen. So what I wanted to do instead was I wanted to have him narrating over, past experiences, because he's talking about, Rescue Bot Academy and Autobot Academy, which are references to, I think, Cybertron and Rescue Bots Academy, and I think the Rescue Bot series as well. Somebody in the comments section pointed that out as well. I haven't actually really seen Cybertron, so I don't exactly... I'm not too familiar with it. I didn't like how Hotshot sounded exactly like Rad from the previous two series. By the way, rest in peace, Kirby Morrow. And Dale Wilson. I hope those guys rest easy. But anyways, back to Hotshot. I was going to have flashbacks, but unfortunately the Legacy Heatwave wasn't out, or Age of the Prime Heatwave, I don't fucking remember. But the new Heatwave figure wasn't out, and I didn't have Chase. So I figured those would be the two most appropriate bots to kind of, to sort of pair with him. Heatwave, because he wasn't out yet, and Chase, just because I had already bought a whole bunch of figures for my personal collection and for this series, and I didn't really want to spend any more money at the time. So I was kind of like, you know what, I'm just going to work with what I have, we're just going to wing it, and this was the final result. Seemed like a lot of people, on the little poll that I did with the first 4 episodes, a lot of people liked this episode. I'm not particularly happy. I think this is the weakest episode of Season 1. Oh, and then we get this goofy little hee-hee-ha-ha moment with Ironhide. This was inspired by a bit that I saw on iCarly. Anyways... Yeah, not a fan of how that conversation sequence with Hotshot and Smokescreen kind of turned out. I feel like it's kind of cool to watch through on the, the first watch through, but, to sort of come back to it, it's kind of just two bots standing in a room talking for 2 minutes, and I didn't really like that. So to kind of break it up, I have some Decepticon stuff, some goofy little hee-hee-ha-ha stuff, as well as some of the establishment of Impactor's beef with Starscream. As you guys probably know, that's going to be a recurring thing throughout the season. Starscream and Impactor having beef. Obviously, we know now that Impactor is a Autobot double agent, and he's actually here undercover for them. So, yeah. I think the entire reason Impactor was even there was, to get the upper hand on the Decepticon faction, as revealed in episode 14, which we're not going to talk about here, since that's the Season 2's season premiere. And here's Starscream standing next to Megatron. And yeah, we just essentially get the first conversation between Impactor and Starscream. We get the first conversation showcasing their ongoing rivalry, which is going to last throughout the entire season until Impactor joins the Autobots. Not really a whole lot here. I'm trying to think of the lines. The audio is muted, so I'm trying to remember what he's saying here. I think he's saying... Oh yeah, he's saying he wants Impactor to fall in line, and he wants to be in control, Starscream is, because... The lore here is that Starscream was the infamous backstabber that he always was, kind of similar to G1. I mean, this is G1 Starscream we're talking about. He was always the manipulative, deceitful, conniving backstabber that he was in G1. Too bad. Megatron lost his vocal components. I guess that makes me the new Decepticon leader. So, yeah, I remember my ex-girlfriend saying that, because we watched this series together, she hated that Starscream had the kind of god complex. And so, I explained, this is the way he always was. Like in the original 1984 series, this is how he was. I mean, this mold is based off of the 1984 series. And, he was always conniving, he was always deceitful, he was always trying to usurp power from Megatron. And, the lore is he was trying to do that back when he was Megatron's second in command. And as we're going to see in the next episode, Megatron actually picked Starscream to be the second in command because he was the leader of the High Guard, which in this canon was the highest branch of Cybertron military other than the Elite Guard. And then here's another referential thing, in case if anybody caught this. Thundercracker saying he could have been a screenwriter for a movie. That was IDW, I believe. I've never actually read IDW. I just remember watching Chris McFeely's video about the basics on Thundercracker, and I remember in it he said that Thundercracker was a screenwriter for a movie in the IDW comics, And then another one of my buddies hit me up, and like I hit up another one of my buddies who is really familiar with IDW and really likes it, and he told me that he doesn't think that Thundercracker was a very good screenwriter. So yeah, I wanted to sort of make sure that I was kind of getting my facts correct before I go and drop a reference to it in my series, especially because it's the source material I'm not really familiar with. But anyways, here's another. This was kind of like a dead giveaway to some people that Impactor was actually an Autobot. There was somebody in the comment section of this video who also theorized that Impactor was this series version of Scavenger from Armada, which again hit the nail right on the head. And then there was another person that commented on the first episode, on episode 14, that they did not see Impactor joining the Autobots coming at all. The reason why I did it like this was because in Armada, Scavenger and Sideways were only on their original factions for like 1 or 2 episodes. Like, Sideways was introduced at the end of episode 15 of Armada, and then the very next episode, boom, he's a Decepticon. And Scavenger was introduced in episode 14, and then we have 15, 16, and 17, and he's only a Decepticon for 4 episodes, and then he joins the Autobots. I didn't really like that because it was incredibly predictable. What I wish the show would have done was, I wish they would have taken the kind of same approach that I took here, where they had Scavenger and Sideways in their respective armies from the very beginning, and then have them be, so that way it's a little bit more blindsiding. So anyways, that was the sort of mindset that I had while writing the characters of Impactor and Sideways, or excuse me, Punch in this series. So that way, because they have actually like spent time in their respective armies, it would be a whole lot less, it would be a whole lot less expected when Counterpunch would eventually betray the Autobots and Impactor would eventually betray the Decepticons. So yeah, we're gonna get a lot more. We're gonna get a lot more of Impactor kind of beefing with Starscream and even trolling him at times. So yeah. But anyways, the history of Megatron. This is the episode where we get the backstory and the lore behind Megatron. The reason why I cut most of, I ended up having to cut most of what I wanted to include here. So for the first time, I had bonus content where we get the full story on Megatron's arisal to power. I believe the story is, it was kind of inspired by Transformers 1, where instead of miners, I had Megatron, or D16 and Orion Pax as Space Bridge repair bots, which I'll get to in a bit. Earlier I said that there were a couple more character cameos from the animated characters. Oh, and here's Counterpunch again, saving Hotshot from Skywarp. We would, of course, get back to this in the Rampage episode. But Hotshot doesn't see him because Counterpunch doesn't want to make his presence known right now. Because, as we know, he's plotting to get into the Autobot army, as Starscream's plan is capture Hotshot and take his life spark to Megatron, so that way they can, resurrect him. Then we have this scene with Starscream and Optimus. Not really a whole lot to say here, other than the liquid nitrogen, again, a G1 reference. And then Smokescreen actually shooting smoke this time, even though he's based off of a version that should be named Grapple. But as we should know by now, Grapple's already a character, and so is Hoist. So for anybody who thought that, Smokescreen was going to come back as Hoist, nope. I also kind of thought that Smokescreen coming back as Hoist was kind of, I feel like that kind of cheapened his death scene in Armada, because let's keep it real, he went out like a fucking G in Armada. So I think having him come back as Hoist was kind of just cheap to the concept of him dying, and kind of like undid the impact that it had. But anyways, here we have more banter between Ironhide, Hotshot, Optimus. Oh, and then TJ Omega's name dropped. A reference to the Plastic Addict. Anybody who's familiar with the Plastic Addict, anybody who's familiar with TJ Omega, we all know he loves to shit on Armada Hotshot. That's like his favorite thing to do. So this was kind of a Easter egg to that. And Optimus saying, I'm his favorite Transformer. That's a reference to TJ Omega's video about how Cybertron Optimus was his favorite Transformer of all time. So, yeah, another referential thing, another scene with Counterpunch. And we're going to get another scene with Optimus, or no, not Optimus, Impactor and Starscream beefing with each other. So one of the common themes that we will see with Starscream is how he just never takes accountability for everything, or he never takes accountability like for anything. He's always blaming everything on these guys, which is this is kind of based on my moral principle. I feel like if you have to blame everybody else for your mistakes, and you have to always be the victim, I think there is a higher likelihood that you are the problem. So that's kind of where this entire thing comes from. That's kind of like how I wrote Starscream's character. Like, let's have him blame his teammates as much as possible, so that way we'd have absolutely no reason to root for this guy, right? To really drive home the fact that it wasn't until Rampage and Counterpunch joined the Decepticons, actually more specifically Rampage, that they were finally able to resurrect Megatron. But we're about to get the scene where Impactor flips over Starscream and threatens him, which is it's symbolizing Starscream and how weak he actually is, especially in comparison to all of the rest of the cons. Yep, here it is. And how Impactor is the only one that doesn't take shit from him. Like, I mean, you'll notice that, and you're about to see it with Skywarp, you'll notice that, like, all these guys, they, like, never say anything to Starscream when he's berating them, saying, oh, you're absolutely slagging useless. Impactor over here is like, no, fuck you, Starscream, I'm not taking this from you. You're a glitchhead, you're a piece of shit, and, you put us down, and this is the reason why we keep losing. You're being a gigantic asshole. You're being a gigantic piece of shit, and this is the reason why we are not winning. You don't know how to effectively lead a team. You blame everybody else but yourself, and you bark orders at them rather than working with them. As opposed to Optimus, who, he's working with the soldiers. He answers Hotshot's question, who is Megatron, with no judgment at all, as opposed to, like, Ironhide and especially the cons. As having some of them actually witnessed, Impactor particularly, as we're about to see here, Megatron's fall from grace. So yeah, it started with there were Space Bridge repair bots. Optimus obviously was Orion Pax. Megatron was D16. And, instead of miners, I had them start off as Space Bridge repair bots. Here's Prowl and Bumblebee from Animated. Here comes Bulkhead being clumsy as always. And this is the bonus content where we have Balasatron. I'm not going to talk too much about the bonus content here because that's the bonus content. But the reason why I cut all of this was because, the reason why I cut all this was because it would have made the video like 21, 22, 23 minutes long. And I didn't really want to do that, especially because we were only 9 minutes or 10 minutes in when we finally got to the Optimus and Red Alert and Hotshot stuff after the cons. Or the Decepticons and Impactor standing up to Starscream and all that. So all that was cut. It is available as bonus content. By the way, those images that you saw of Megatronus and Unicron and DevCon, those were all stock images. Just because I didn't really have much for them to do, for one. And this was a flashback, and I wanted to keep the video short again. But I do actually have the Kingdom Ultra Magnus figure. The scene where he has the Autobot emblem on his right shoulder, those are the scenes that I shot with him, because that was obviously customized. And then here's Megatron, Shockwave, and then Armada Demolisher, and Impactor. As we know, Impactor was the Autobot double agent for most of his life. And then we have Classics Jetfire. And then we have Red Alert, which he did mention that he was present for the downfall of Megatron. I guess we'll talk about Megatron a little bit. The reason why I had him as the Energon figure was because in Transformers Animated, all of the Decepticons were towering over the Autobots. Like, the only one that really, like, scaled with any of them was Bulkhead because of his massive size. And, like, he and Lugnut could go toe-to-toe. But all of the rest of the Autobots were tiny in comparison to Blitzwing and Starscream. So, I kind of had Megatron. Like, the reason I used Energon Megatron was to have him towering over all of the Autobots. It was in between, like, I'm gonna be honest, it was either between Energon Megatron or Cybertron Galvatron, who I was gonna call Megatron anyways. The reason why I went with, or actually, let me explain why I was considering using Cybertron Galvatron. It was because he was a triple changer, and I've always imagined Megatron to be, because he has several alt modes where he's a jet and he's a tank. He's usually either one or the other, so I decided, in my personal headcanon, The best Megatron, in my opinion, was one where he was a triple changer. So let's have him be a tank and a jet. So not only did Cybertron Galvatron, not only was he the like silvery, purpley kind of colors that you would associate with Megatron, but he was the perfect height in comparison with like everybody else, just towering over them, and he was a triple changer. Ultimately, why I went with Energon Megatron was because A, he was easier to find, and B, the little tank on his arm kind of served as the like fusion cannon almost. Like, I know I probably could have customized a fusion cannon for Cybertron Galvatron, but I didn't really want to do that. I thought it would be... I kind of just wanted to keep all of the... I just wanted to sort of keep all of the parts that go along with their respective figures together. Also, the reason why Hotshot was kind of appeared a little bit taller was because he was standing on a book, because he's comparatively shorter than everybody else. And then we have this scene at the end where, you know, they see the Decepticons, and I believe the next episode is kind of a continuation from this episode where they're kind of just fighting the cons. The very next scene we see, or the very first scene that we see them in the next episode. So yeah, another rollout scene. Not much to say here. But anyways, that was the history of Megatron, and now we move on to Shadow of Steel. The episode where Counterpunch officially joins the Autobots. Excuse me. Let's grab a drink of water. So yeah, we get Hotshot getting dropped by Impactor again. Which, come to think of it, I don't think he got dropped in the previous episode. I know in... okay, so we have episode 2... which established the rivalry between Impactor and Hotshot before he finds out Impactor's secret. And then in episode 3, we have him getting dropped, and episode 4, it's kind of just an afterthought because I wanted to focus on Megatron. But here, as you can see, he's struggling to really get so much as a hit on the Impactor. But then, of course, Starscream gets dropped instantaneously because, I mean, he's fucking Starscream, so why wouldn't he? And then Impactor's like, well, okay, you're retreating, so now I can't defeat Hotshot, even though, yes, he fucking can! Yes, he can defeat Hotshot. He's got him totally on the ropes, and he could totally destroy Hotshot, but he's not going to do that, because he's an Autobot. But Hotshot, the characters... Well, actually, no, some of the characters do, but Hotshot and, more importantly, the audience don't know that yet. Even though the obvious Autobot emblem underneath the Decepticon emblem, even though that's not really much of a dead giveaway, it's still, like... I mean, it is there. I didn't really think that much of it. I just kind of was like, okay, let's make him a Decepticon. But let's kind of, you know, this Autobot symbol peeping out behind the Decepticon one kind of makes for a little bit of foreshadowing, I guess. So that's kind of why I went with the entire sticker thing and didn't customize or anything. If I could go back and do this again, I probably would have customized him using the Toy Hacks Ripper levels or something like that to cover up. And then have a Decepticon emblem somewhere where you can't see the Autobot emblem to make it a little bit less obvious. But some people were still blindsided by Impactor's face turn, or I think that's what you call him. But anyways, let's talk about Counterpunch for a minute. I remember Hotshot said to him, take that stupid sigil off your chest if you're not going to wear it with any pride, because Counterpunch was being kind of a little bit of a hothead in this scene. And he's going to go talk about it with Impactor, or no, not Impactor, Red Alert, and Smokescreen. So yeah, Counterpunch was kind of being a little bit of a hothead in this scene. Which we're going to find out later he was a friend of Ironhide's from boot camp. But, yeah, he's talking about it with Smokescreen and Red Alert, and they're saying, oh, yeah, you know, or Smokescreen's saying, why didn't you take the help if he's offering to, you know, help you with something he's been struggling with? And Red Alert's like, no, actually, this was really smart of you not to take help from a random Transformer, especially even if he was wearing the Autobot emblem. It is not a surefire indicator that he is their friend. So yeah, it was actually a smart move on Hotshot's part not to accept help from him. And, you know, Red Alert's making that known here, and Smokescreen's like, oh yeah, that was actually pretty smart of you not to trust him, because he said, oh yeah, you have to turn your back on all these glitch detail losers, I think is what he called. So yeah, he's already putting down all of Hotshot's closest comrades, and that was a reason for suspicion. As you'll see later, the suspicion was correct. And here we get Soundwave and all the Decepticons and, you know, the repairing of Megatron. And we also get more beef between Starscream and Impactor. And then we also get more beef between, actually, the rest of the cons as well. I think they're going to have, or Impactor and Barricade are going to have a little bit of a conversation a little bit later, kind of discussing Starscream and, you know, how terrible of a leader he is, which, you know, as I explained before, I was trying to make Starscream as terrible of a leader as I possibly could, so I could really drive home that narrative of, the fact that he gave control to somebody else, specifically an ex-Autobot. That's when they finally achieved their goal. So we have another argument between Starscream and Impactor, where I believe it ends with Impactor threatening to flip him over again. Oh, and Barricade just gets knocked down randomly, because of course he does. It's little moments like this where Barricade just gets shoved to the ground for no particular reason, or when Thundercracker's just randomly in the background T-posing in the background of the reality check episode, while Impactor is sort of giving Hotshot that reality check, like as the title suggests. It's just the little stuff like that I feel like kind of. It's the little stuff like that I probably don't need to include, but I just want to do it anyways, just to see if people react to that sort of thing, and just to see, and just I like it. I think it's funny just to have like random things happen for no apparent reason. Though the important thing is, as long as it's not taking away from like the plot or anything like that, that's when I feel like it works the best. And then here we go. Do you want me to flip you over again? And then Starscream, obviously he's intimidated because Impactor has once again been like, hey, you can put down the others, but I'm not going to take it from you, Starscream. So Impactor being the only one to stand up to Starscream. And then Barricade in a minute here, I think, is going to theorize the fact that he thinks that Impactor is trying to get Starscream to destroy Megatron in his dormant state or something like that, because Starscream thinks that he has leverage over all the cons, being in complete control of Megatron in his dormancy, because obviously Optimus defeated him earlier. Yep, and here comes Barricade. And they're kind of just chatting it up. And, Barricade, he reveals all of his deep, dark secrets to Impactor. And the two of them, well, I'd like to say they'd formulate a bond, but, Barricade, even though he's kind of an open book here, Impactor is everything but. I believe at the end of this conversation he says, be careful who you really trust with your deep, dark secrets. They could spell disaster if they fall into the wrong hands. But anyways, here's the scene where... Actually, I think this was in the bonus content. Yeah, it was in the bonus content where Megatron's like, oh yeah, Starscream, you are going to be my vice commander because you were the leader of the High Guard. I don't think that was actually ever canon to the... Well, technically it's canon to the series, but because it's bonus content, I don't know if that was ever clearly established. I think maybe Barricade talked about it here. I think he did. I don't remember right off the top of my head because I haven't watched this episode in a while. I'll probably go back after a while and update in the comment section or something like that, because I really don't want to do any editing here. But Impactor is threatening Barricade, and it's just not really a whole lot to say about here. Impactor is kind of just, he's saying, hey, I'm not going to tell you my secrets just because you told me yours. It doesn't work like that. And Barricade's like, oh, come on. I told you all of my deep, dark secrets. Because, Barricade actually calls him out on Impactor's inconsistency. He says, hey, you had Hotshot totally on the ropes today. Why didn't you just destroy him while you had the chance? Especially if it meant that, we could have revived Megatron today, and we could have had our Grand Emperor back, had you had just destroyed Hotshot and, brought his life spark back to the base. But Impactor obviously isn't going to do that because he, of course, is an Autobot double agent. But why the fuck would he tell Barricade that, why would he trust Barricade with his deep, dark secrets? Because, in his own words, if you trust just anybody with your deep, dark secrets, they could screw you over in the long run if you, trust the wrong person. And if he had trusted Barricade there, then his cover would have been blown, and the entire mission of preventing the Decepticons from achieving their goal would have been essentially null and void at that point. Even if it meant Smokescreen was still alive at that time, which I guess technically, well, we'll talk about that a little bit later because I kind of have a theory about that. I'll talk about it later because Counterpunch is coming up to make his official... he is coming to make his official entrance into the Autobot Resistance. Yeah, here he is again, and we're going to get another referential thing in just a moment here with Ironhide and Counterpunch. I know technically his name is Punch right now, but I just keep calling him Counterpunch because technically that's his true alias, as we should already know by the Rising Darkness episode. And then here's the referential thing, Megan Fox and Bobby Bolivia's. We have Megan Fox in the infamous car scene from the first Transformers movie when Shia LaBeouf pulls the mother of all party fouls and he ditches his homeboy so he can take Megan Fox home. So we have the fixing the car reference and Bobby Bolivia's, which is where he bought Bumblebee for the first time, and he was like, I thought you were going to buy me a car, not a piece of crap. And so yeah, 2 references to Michael Bay, and definitely not the last, as we're going to see in the next episode. But anyways, here is Counterpunch, kind of using Hotshot's own words to, just be a jerk at the end of the day. Oh yeah, it's an honor to shake the hand of the most well-respected Transformer to ever be programmed, which was Hotshot's words earlier in their encounter where they met for the first time, and Punch was saying, oh yeah, if you, ditch these glitch detail malfunctions that you call your friends, I'll tell you how to defeat Impactor, which obviously we know now would have been a whole hunk of baloney. But anyways, getting into gear, this is a very interesting episode because I did not include it in the first run of the Hotshot series. Originally how it went was there was the Shadows of Steel, which was the previous episode, and then it went straight to Code Red Alert. This episode is entirely new. And the reason why this episode is here is because I wanted to kind of foreshadow Counterpunch, being a Decepticon, which you will see in this video. But I also wanted to give some backstory on Ironhide and Punch, being friends way back in the day. Before, when I used Armada Sideways, it was kind of just Sideways joins the Autobot Resistance, and then immediately he's helping out Hotshot. I decided not to do that and instead have Hotshot and Ironhide have one more, let's have them get into one more spat, and then we'll have Counterpunch kind of opening up to Hotshot and being like, yeah, I know how he is. I'm friends with him. And don't worry, he's always like this. You can tell me all about it, and we can do some training. Even though they got off on the wrong foot, first impressions are everything. But I just wanted it to seem like, Counterpunch trying to make up for the, excuse me, wrong footing that they kind of got off to. And then, of course, we have Mirage, who we know is a red herring for Counterpunch. Here we have them meeting for the first time, and then we have Sentinel. I think it's pretty obvious that this episode was inspired by the boot camp episode from Transformers Animated. As you can see, or as you probably saw by this point, there are a lot of similarities between this episode and the Transformers Animated version of this episode. Most notably, we have the basic premise of one of these guys being a Decepticon spy. Obviously, there are 5 of them, and one of them is a spy. And then we have Ironhide, the one member from the main cast, listening to a conversation. Of course, he thinks it's Mirage. And you know what? I actually didn't even realize this, but I actually have Mirage and Punch, and even Ironhide, actually, in the very same positions that they were in the original Transformers Animated episode, which I totally did not realize that. So yeah, Punch is where Longarm was in Animated, Mirage is where Wasp was, and Ironhide is where Ironhide was. So yeah, that's something that I did completely subconsciously. This, though, was intentional. So Sentinel calling Ironhide Private Tooth Fairy was a reference to Bayformers. So there is one thing that he says, Sentinel saying, hey, I'm going to call you Private Tooth Fairy because it's girly and I want to humiliate you, which I'm not entirely sure how that would bode with today's standards. That might be a little bit problematic, so I am sorry about that, for those of you who might have found it problematic. The reason I included that line, though, was because it was a reference to the 2007 Michael Bay film where Ironhide falls in the pool and the little girl runs out to him and she says, excuse me, are you the Tooth Fairy? So that's something that I don't think anybody had actually... nobody pointed this out in the comments. I don't think anybody caught that reference to Bayformers, but Private Tooth Fairy is entirely a reference to the Tooth Fairy scene from the 2007 Michael Bay Transformers film. I don't think anybody caught that. It was a very easy one to miss, especially because we can kind of take it as Sentinel just being an asshole, as Sentinel always is, especially in the 2007 animated continuity, which is what he's based on. But yeah, no, definitely... Bayformers reference, I don't think anybody got. And the second one's coming up, which is a lot easier to identify. But we have Mirage fucking it up, and then we're going to see the Transform-Ups, which was also in the boot camp episode. I had them do it different. I had them do it 1, 2, 3, 47, 1, 2, 3, which was different to how they did it in animated. But even still, here we have the second referential piece to Michael Bay, where Sentinel says, hey, mute it, Ironhide, mute it, Private Tooth Fairy, or I'll blast you with my rust cannon. because we all know Sentinel blast Ironhide with his rust cannon in the Dark of the Moon film. But here's the first bit of foreshadowing to Counterpunch being a Decepticon. So this is obviously not Mirage's voice, for one, and for two, right here, you can actually see Counterpunch. Like, that frame that you just saw, you can actually see Punch inside of the room. Like, there's his little headlight right there. I actually did that on purpose. Like, I positioned my light such to the point where it would be really hard, like, you would really have to look in that dark area to actually see, Counterpunch's light, or to see the light on his little shoulder pad thing. And then the earlier scene, you could actually see his yellow body inside of the room. I did all sorts of crazy things to make it as hard as possible for you to actually see that. I turned up the brightness, I positioned my light every so different way, just so I could have him in there as a little thing for people to actually see if they looked close enough. But Punch is in there, and you can see him, and you can see him in the first frame with the yellow body and the headlight on his shoulder pad. And then Mirage walks out because obviously he's a red herring, and I wanted to make him look guilty. And this line coming up right here, what do you call him? I caught the spy red-handed. That was completely subconscious. I didn't realize that I was scripting that. I completely forgot that Punch's hands were red. So the fact that the guy with the red hands actually is the spy, that was completely subconscious, and that was completely by accident. But it worked like magic for this scene because Punch was the spy and he actually had red hands. So to say that he caught the spy red-handed, that could have been both figuratively and literally. Because Ironhide thought he caught the spy because Mirage walked out of the room, and because he was like, oh, wait a minute, there's nothing in there. And he quickly closes the door, so yeah, he looks pretty guilty in that scene, even though in the episode 15, we clearly saw Mirage was in there with Counterpunch, but he was using his cloaking abilities to prevent himself from being seen. Obviously, because in episodes 14 and 15, we get some alternate angles to this episode. Actually, when I was filming this episode initially, I shot alternate angles because I knew I was going to have to use them later. I just wasn't sure when I was going to use them. So I actually have a folder labeled Hotshot Episode 6 where all of this with no background music and none of the ambient sound effects are being used. But I do have another alt angle here. And then here's Ironhide walking out of the closet, and Blur notices that Punch went in there with him and is wondering, hey, wasn't Punch in there with you? So Ironhide, of course, does quick thinking. He pulls a, what's that over there? And of course they fall for it. And now he's running back ridiculously fast because, again, this is in 1.5 speed. We have Wheeljack and Cliffjumper getting a cameo. They're kind of just background characters. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with them yet. But yeah, here we have Counterpunch trying to... Well, he's trying to expose Mirage, but Sentinel walks in with Mirage because they're suspicious of them. Now they're trying to snoop through his locker. But then here's another thing that I don't think anybody caught. Mirage saying, oh yeah, I wasn't talking to Starscream. He was. And then he points to one of them. Who's that one? We know it's not Ironhide because Ironhide was outside of the room while Counterpunch was having his conversation with Starscream. And we know that that's not Mirage's voice, but we don't know what Counterpunch sounds like with the Decepticon voice modulators. And then, of course, here is the communication device with the Decepticon emblem on it inside of Mirage's locker. And then there's the key, which is going to look different in a future episode because, I didn't really think this through very well, and I kind of just used the cyber key that came with the figure that I bought. I don't remember which one it was, but I ended up... I got that with some figure. I don't remember which one it was. But, I just had it, so I was like, let me plant that in Mirage's locker as a way of, showcasing that he's guilty. And we have Wheeljack and Cliffjumper taking away Mirage, dragging him out the door. And, yeah, it's not really a whole lot to say about this other than Sentinel saying, oh yeah, I think you've earned the right to be called Ironhide once again. And then we have this scene with Punch and Ironhide where he's complaining that, oh yeah, Sentinel never gave him credit. And Punch in a minute's about to complain that Ironhide did not really give him credit for helping him exploit or helping him expose Mirage for being a spy. So yeah, definitely showcasing Ironhide being full of himself and just kind of cocky. And then Hotshot, of course, punches him out on it. and then they get into their spat as well, which kind of, again, I kind of included this so that way, Punch would, he'd reach out to Hotshot and be like, hey, I know that Ironhide can be like this, and I know that he can, I know that he can, be kind of intense, So to kind of like open up the floodgates for Ironhide, or no, not Ironhide, Punch and Hotshot having a bond, and then we have the Ironhide I needed that gag again, which I'm kind of trying to make a running gag here, similar to how it was in Prime. And Ironhide's like, why is everyone ganging up on me? Because obviously he's too prideful to admit that, he's being a jerk. And then here's that conversation with Punch and Hotshot coming together. Yeah, it's Ironhide, why is he like this? And Punch is like, oh yeah, he's always been really full of himself. Ever since he exposed Mirage, he's just been really full of himself. And he's just like this. And we kind of have to work with him. And he can definitely be, a bit of an asshole sometimes. But, I won't be an asshole to you. I'll help you sort of, deal with him a little bit better. I'll also help you with your fight with Impactor. So that is kind of what is coming from Counterpunch to Hotshot. And immediately, Private Fruit Drink, which is what Sentinel called him earlier. Hotshot calls him that now. And then here we get a scene with Mirage, where he's running away from Sentinel. And this being at the very end. The background music here, I just absolutely love Terror by Night by Hubert Clifford. I highly recommend giving it a listen at some point or another. It's the same background music that plays in SpongeBob's Nightmare from the Procrastination episode, so it is protected by copyright. So I recommend checking it out. Terror by Night's a phenomenal piece. And the fact that that's the last thing you hear in not Code Red Alert, the fact that that's the last thing you hear in Getting Into the Gear is just amazing. But now we're on the Code Red Alert, which we are back to old episodes now. Getting Into the Gear was sandwiched in between Shadow of Steel and Code Red Alert to kind of enhance the bond between Ironhide and Punch, as well as give Punch a reason to be there, and sort of give a justification for the others, and especially Hotshot trusting him. Whereas in the original take of this series, I did not do that. It kind of just skipped straight to Code Red Alert, and we jump immediately to Hotshot and fucking Punch, just training with each other. But Getting Into Gear also exposes it also introduces the Mirage angle, which will be a prominent thing throughout this season, and we'll kind of deal with it a little bit in the first two episodes of the next. But here we have Red Alert kind of just talking to Hotshot and being like, hey, you need to not take anything Impactor says with face value, but you also need to consider the fact that some of the things that he says are true, as a matter of fact. Let me unplug my headphones real fast. And Hotshot's upset about it because he thinks that Red Alert is saying the same things as Impactor, which technically he is, but because Impactor is supposedly a Decepticon, Hotshot is just skeptical of him by default. And then we just saw G1 Red Alert and Orion Pax. That's supposed to be, as you could probably guess, that's supposed to be Red Alert's younger self before he became, the big burly Armada version. I guess I'll kind of explain the lore behind Red Alert in this series, particularly the figure that I used. I used the movie Inferno figure from 2007, I think, the red repaint, partially because he was actually red, and the original Armada Red Alert he has a lot of blue, so that's one. And I also wanted to, mainly just for like difference and stuff, it was just mainly for the difference, just because he was actually red. I knew that was a bit of a stretch, considering that we had Optimus and Ironhide and Red Alert, 3 red guys all standing in one room together. Not really, kind of repetitive on the, kind of repetitive palette-wise, I guess you could say. But still, I went with it. It was between this one and Energon Prowl. But the Energon Prowl version was mostly blue, and, his name is Red Alert, and I wanted him to be red. Ironhide was originally going to be... He was originally going to be, I think, the red and black repaint of the Sergeant Cup figure from the TF Prime line. But I have there are some reasons why I didn't get that figure. It didn't look like a very good figure, so yeah. But anyways, back to the series. We've got some funny hee-haw stuff with the cons, and then we also have some more like Impactor and Barricade being kind of close to each other stuff. Not really a whole lot to mention here, just Starscream being Starscream. Thundercracker also gets his first speaking line in 2 episodes. I don't think he spoke at all in episode 5, and he wasn't even in episode 6. I don't think any of the main cons were except for Starscream. But yeah. Anyways, we get this scene, with the Autobots finding the power cell, and then we get the insignia transition for the first time in 2 episodes, and then we have the little pre-mission sort of assessment kind of thing where Optimus is putting them in pairs, Smokescreen and Counterpunch obviously being paired together. That's going to come back a little bit later to give Smokescreen some skepticism, but also to kind of give Hotshot and Ironhide some screen time together to sort of capitalize on the spat that they're in right now. Hotshot, of course, tries to save Private Tooth Fairy, and more foreshadowing, the insignia transition. I don't think anybody caught this, but if you just saw it right there, it transitioned to the Decepticon emblem, and the first thing that you see immediately after the transition is Counterpunch. So yeah, that's a bit of foreshadowing that was very easy to miss. Also, the Decepticon insignia transition audio cue played as opposed to the Autobot one. So that's going to come up a few more times. I think it comes up at least 2 more times before Counterpunch reveals himself. But anyways, Ironhide and Ironhide. I almost said SpongeBob there for a second. I saw the yellow and it got confusing. But yeah, Ironhide and Hotshot. They kind of had their little spat, and the cons found them, and Red Alert and Optimus. They're going to be summoned, and of course, Optimus said that Red Alert was an expert strategist, and he always, they won multiple battles because, Red Alert was always on top of things, as you're about to see with the pizza disc launch sequence that we're about to see. But yeah, this being Red Alert's spotlight episode, what I made for myself in my little note sheet was, they kind of talk about his backstory, talk about the history he has with, being a strategist and a scientist and a medical assistant. So he was very qualified to, and he especially, he was coming from a genuine place when he told Hotshot, hey, be careful what Impactor tells you. Don't take it with face value, but also listen to his advice because a lot of it's true. So yeah. The pizza disc scene we're about to see here, the pizza disc, I think Bolt Matrix called it that. So I just thought it was really funny, so I just call it the pizza disc thing. But we're about to see it get launched in just a second here. Starscream, of course, had the Autobots retract their weapons, and Optimus is, he's cooperating, but the cons don't expect it. Here's the little signal that he gives, the hand signal, where he's doing the come here motion to, and here it is, the pizza disc. This was recorded on a green screen, or actually, no, one of these posters. I kind of spun it around a little bit and did a stop motion sequence and then chroma keyed it. It was on one of these posters you see in the background, which is supposed to be the sky. In case if anybody was wondering about the little posters that I have, even though you can see their shadows on it, it's supposed to be the sky. That's why it goes from this light grayish bluish color to dark blue. The dark blue indicates the nighttime, which is why I have more dramatic lighting. And Barricade's standing on a book, which is why he appears taller. If any of these really short characters appear taller, it's because they're standing on a book or something. I need them to appear taller. It's almost like from iCarly where Nathan Kress was standing on those where he was wearing the platform boots because Miranda Cosgrove and Jeanette McCurdy just towered over him because he was so tiny in the first series. That was kind of the inspiration, or that was kind of the that's what gave me the idea to have the shorter characters stand on books in these certain scenes where they need to appear taller. But anyways, this scene, we're about to get the first scene, or the first punch that Hotshot lands onto Impactor. Yep, right here. Which is supposed to symbolize, his improvement as a Decepticon, or no, not a Decepticon, an Autobot resistance. It's supposed to symbolize his improvements with the Autobot resistance and how he's actually getting better. And how Impactor's advice is actually helping him, since he gets that little flashback before he lands it. So yeah, even though Impactor is supposedly the enemy, his advice is still helping Hotshot, which was symbolized in that little punch right there. And then we have Smokescreen with the power cell, which is nothing more than a power dock for phone chargers. I didn't really have many props and had to kind of improvise a little bit. But yeah, I guess this could be foreshadowing, I guess, to the apprenticeship that Impactor and Hotshot will eventually have, since they're walking side by side together, and Impactor's not trying to destroy Hotshot or anything like that. But yeah, here the Autobots are kind of talking about how, oh yeah, Starscream, he would probably be a bit better as a leader if he took some accountability and he actually led his team, but as we all know, he doesn't. And then we have the apology scene with Hotshot and Red Alert, which was inspired by the apology scene in Transformers Armada, where Hotshot kind of does the same thing, where he and the human characters, they're kind of just fucking around, and Red Alert was like, knock it off, I can't concentrate with you making all this noise or whatever. And so this is kind of like based on that, almost, where Hotshot realizes, oh yeah, Red Alert actually knows his shit when it comes to combat. So yeah, definitely some character growth on Hotshot's part here, which, part of the risk of having shit happen to him in the first 3 episodes without him doing too much, was because I didn't want the audience to stop rooting for him by this point when we actually start seeing some character growth, which is like, I was like thinking, okay, so I'm gonna go based off of what I did, what I attempted the first time, where I had all these things happen to him, but I need to start giving him character growth as soon as possible, so that way the audience has a reason to root for him. Which again is showcased here, where Hotshot's like, hey, let's actually ask Red Alert if he needs help with the panel lining, but Red Alert's like, nah, I got it, go train. So yeah, we get this fake out ending where we actually get a little conversation between Smokescreen and Hotshot, showcasing, the trust that the two of them have within each other, and the foreshadowing of Smokescreen's unfortunate death when Hotshot says, I really hope that nothing bad happens to you in the future, and Smokescreen's like, nothing bad will happen to me, I'll make sure of it. So yeah, some foreshadowing here. There's also the scene where Smokescreen is talking about how he thinks Counterpunch is a little bit weird because he was acting kind of urgent, especially with the factor of the Decepticons showing up, almost like he wanted them to. And what do you call him? I think, yeah, Smokescreen was saying, he might be acting weird, but maybe we don't need to trust him because he and Ironhide go way back, and, they trust each other enough to expose Mirage with bulletproof evidence against him, even though, as we already know, Mirage was just a red herring for Counterpunch. So, yeah, Operation Lifespark, there's going to be a lot more foreshadowing here, which I'll explain in a minute. Just grab some more water. Here we have the Decepticons and Impactor's flashback to when Hotshot got the punch on him. Oh, they're talking about how they're going to destroy Hotshot and bring his life spark to Megatron in this scene. I do remember this. And I do remember Impactor saying that, oh yeah, are you sure Hotshot is really the weakest link in the Autobot resistance? And he's remembering the punch that Hotshot landed on him in the previous episode. And even though the cons all think he's weak, Impactor knows otherwise because of the obvious improvement that he is seeing in Hotshot, even as he's posing as a Decepticon and even as he is working with them. Yeah, Impactor knows that Hotshot is stepping his game up, and he knows that, Hotshot isn't really a weak link. The Decepticons just want to capture his life spark and use that to revive Megatron. Because Starscream secretly is fucking terrified of Optimus Prime, or so Impactor thinks. And a Barricade, of course, he asks Impactor about this, but Impactor, he's not going to say it because he's an Autobot and he can't reveal his deep secrets to everybody because it would blow his cover. Which, while we're talking about this training sequence, there's not really much I have to say about this training sequence. Let me go ahead and talk about Impactor just a little bit more. I don't know if I mentioned this already, but it might have helped Impactor to blow his cover, maybe to prevent Counterpunch from, killing Smokescreen. And then Counterpunch might be like, oh shit, Impactor, he just revealed himself. Now what do we do? So that might have been a mistake on Impactor's part. I'm not sure, though. But back to the training sequence, we have Ironhide confronting Hotshot about the the disarming challenge, about how, he was doing really well at it, and how Ironhide thinks he can do better because, Ironhide, he hates rookies and he doesn't want anything to do with them, So, yeah, we have Ironhide, and he's, being brutal, hitting everybody as opposed to disarming them, and, Red Alert, he hits him, and he takes him and Smokescreen out at the same time, and then we're going to get a gag that, this is the episode where Ironhide talks backwards the entire time. And yeah, it was, well, like I said before, I wanted to have some, goofy little hee-hee-ha-ha stuff as well as the sort of seriousness to kind of balance out the darker moments. So yeah, Ironhide, he's talking backwards the entire time, and you have Hotshot and Smokescreen and Punch just goofing around with them. Because Ironhide, he's been an asshole this entire time, so this was his version. This is how he was going to get his comeuppance, He's going to get ridiculed by Hotshot and Smokescreen and, I guess, Punch. And if he wouldn't attacked Hotshot, obviously, he's got everybody backing him. So, if he attacked Hotshot, Smokescreen, and Punch, we're going to jump in. So, Ironhide didn't want to attack Hotshot physically. And, Red Alert, he was like, you guys are just fucking immature. But the Ironhide talking backwards sticks throughout the entire episode, and yeah, there is some foreshadowing there, which I'll explain once we get there. Here we have Starscream talking to the Autobots, which kind of sets up the conflict for the episode, which is, it sets up the main plot. Starscream wants to lure the Autobots into a death trap with the intent of getting Hotshot away from everybody else. So that way they can take him back to the Decepticon headquarters and use his life spark to revive Megatron, as that is the main status quo, and that's the main mission of the Decepticons this season. The only thing that they did not actually consider was the fact that Hotshot was going to completely drop them all, which is ultimately what happens at the end of this episode. Oh, and there was a little editing error there, a little black screen. That is not the last time that this will happen, so my apologies for that. There are some editing mistakes. I will point them out as I go, even though I don't think anybody noticed them. And then here we have the operation. The Seekers are kind of standing up top, and they are kind of looking down. This was actually filmed on top of my bed. Those blue posters would not stick to the wall, by the way, which is why you see the blue in the background, and then it just turns into gray. I just kind of dimmed the lighting a little bit to sort of give a more eerie feeling, because this was supposed to be taking place at night. And here's Soundwave, we have Barricade and Impactor, and they're going to be working together, and then the Seekers looking down at the Autobots to kind of portray that, oh yeah, they're looking down. They're in an elevated space, and I don't really have that many elevated spaces, so I used my bed. You can see my sheets there, and then here comes Impactor. He's like, finally some teamwork, I really like that. And then Punch, he's like, oh yeah, I'm sure it's not too bad. Let's just keep walking forward, because obviously he knows it's a trap. He's a Decepticon double agent, no shit, Sherlock. He knows it's a trap, but the others are kind of skeptical of it, and of course they are, because here comes Starscream. Originally what I had happen was, in the old version, Optimus, he knows that they're coming, and so he immediately attacks Starscream before he even reaches down. I decided not to do that this time. What I had happen instead was the Ironhide talking backwards. I used that to foreshadow Punch becoming a Decepticon. In that little clip that you saw right there where Ironhide was talking, he actually says, it's almost like some bot here told them that we were going to be here. Yeah, and then he spoke again. He says that in reverse, though, so nobody actually knows that... Nobody actually knows that that's what he said, because he said it in reverse. And who's going to think to reverse Ironhide's speech? For all we know, it's a funny little hee-haw running gag throughout the entire episode. For all we know, it's played for laughs. There was no way that, Ironhide's speech could have totally foreshadowed Counterpunch, being a Decepticon. But anyways, more on Hotshot. He drops Thundercracker. He uses Optimus Prime's axe to pole vault himself onto Thundercracker and get behind Impactor and Barricade, which is the start of, Hotshot just dropping them all in one, which is one thing that Starscream did not consider because, as he mentioned, Hotshot was, the affirmation, he was the fucking Why do I keep using all these big words? He was the fucking weak link. That's what I'm trying to say. There you go. And sorry for the swearing. I just swear a lot. So anyways, yeah, we have Thundercracker struggling to take down Hotshot and Barricade and Impactor keeping Optimus back. But yeah, all the cons get dropped, and because obviously Starscream's not going to think about anything. He's not that smart. So why should he be the leader? And then, yeah, here he is. Riding Impactor. Or no, not a Thundercracker. Sorry, I keep getting all these names mixed up. I'm really having a really difficult time with names today. But yeah, not really a whole lot to say about this other than that, Ironhide's backward speech was a way to sneak some foreshadowing there because I didn't think anybody would think to reverse his speech. So yeah, and then we have Smokescreen saying, call it off. Didn't mean to ruin your day. Why don't you pick up your toys and go home? Obviously, that's a meta joke. And then we also had Hotshot earlier saying, I love Jam, reference to the Dreamwave comic. I think it was Dreamwave where he's just obsessed with Jam. Or the parody of the Dreamwave comic where he's obsessed with Jam. So yeah, I wanted to sneak that in there at some point or another. And then Impactor, again, the last one to retreat. Hotshot standing right there. I mean, I guess he has Punch standing next to him. But what do you call him? Punch being right there and Impactor being right there. Either one of them, depending on who the true Decepticon was, could have destroyed him. But even though we think it's Impactor, he doesn't do it because obviously he's not a Decepticon. And Punch doesn't do it because he's trying to provide the illusion that he's actually an Autobot. So yeah, definitely a lot of discreteness here on both of the Double Agents parts. And Hotshot's like, oh yeah, is Impactor talking about me when it comes to team player stuff? But then immediately after, Optimus is like, you're a true player, you're a true team player, Hotshot. And then Ironhide talks backwards again. He didn't really say anything important to note. And then we get another Easter egg, I'm going to turn into a truck now. Which I just wanted to have Optimus say that at one point or another. And I knew that this was the last chance that I'd actually get to have him say that before the shit starts going dark the next episode. But we get our next little bit of foreshadowing, the insignia transition again. I actually used the close-up variant of the insignia transition for this particular one because I wanted the audience to notice that this one looked different than all of the other ones. So you might notice, especially with Wheeljack / Rampage and this one, this insignia transition is the further away variant. So are all of the other ones, except for the one that you saw just a minute ago, that transitioned back to the Autobot base with Punch. Keep in mind that the Autobot to the Decepticon transition only played when Counterpunch was shown. That's because, and there's going to be another one coming up. Let's talk about Wheeljack for a bit because the one that's coming up is done a little bit differently. Let's talk about Wheeljack for a little bit, specifically Armada Wheeljack. So, as you guys may or may not know, I changed his name to Rampage. That was a bit referential to the Megatron legend, aka the Japanese version of Armada. The reason why I did that was because Earthwise Wheeljack / G1 Wheeljack was already canon to this. He was already canon to this series. As we saw, he was in the Getting Into the Gear episode. He was also in the background of a couple more episodes and will be in the background of another future episode. So I thought it would be because he was Wheeljack in the first version of Hotshot. His name was Wheeljack. I decided to change his name to Rampage just as a way to sort of, again, throw off the audience. I mean, we already saw G1 Wheeljack in Getting Into Gear and some other flashback episodes. So obviously the name Wheeljack's already taken. So why in the world do we have Armada Wheeljack in a series where G1 Wheeljack's already canon? So even though he wasn't, even though Rampage was not name dropped in the previous episode, he was teased. I changed his name to Rampage in this episode, A Blast from the Past Part 1, which is obviously based on the Armada episode Past. As you can see, it's almost pretty much identical to the Armada storyline where Hotshot leaves Rampage in the fire and he's like, hey, I'm going to go get help. But this time he name drops Brawn just because, I wanted these background characters to have names as opposed to in Armada where they were just random G1 characters with no names. Brawn's name dropped. I think Inferno is also name dropped. I don't know. But Anyways, it plays out almost identically to Armada, where he's like, oh, I made a mistake. I need to go back for him. But obviously we all know how well that turns out. And it turns out that part plays pretty similarly to this series as well, the Hotshot series. The only difference is there's no Armada Sideswipe. And I think that was for the better because Armada Sideswipe was... well, he's not my favorite character. I'll just go ahead and leave it at that for now. I do want to talk about this scene as well. Because there was going to be a joke that I was going to make in this scene, particularly revolving around Smokescreen's crane arm. I was going to have I don't know if I should really mention it, honestly, because I feel like it would be problematic by today's standards, but I don't get offended easily, and I just think a lot of things are really, really funny. I just think everything's funny, and obviously a lot of people are not like that. Let's just say there was going to be a dirty joke that I was going to make with Smokescreen's crane arm, deploying all by itself, similar to something else I will not mention. I decided not to go that route because this was probably the Hotshot episode I got the most traction on at the time of its release. And because this was the darkest episode in the series up to this point, I didn't really want to ruin that by having a dirty joke in there. I also didn't really want to get canceled off of YouTube, so I think it was, I think it was the right call not to make dirty jokes, in this episode particularly. But you saw Counterpunch sweating earlier because of the encryption keys. That little thingy was going to be established here, and obviously we saw Punch sweating, and then he tried to dismiss it and be like, hey, wasn't it like a computer glitch or something like that? And Red Alerts was like, this is impossible. This is encrypted data, and, you can't fuck with it, right? And, Punch was sweating in that earlier scene because obviously he was the one who did it because he's a Decepticon double agent, and then Ironhide is, calling his bluff because Optimus is like, okay, we're going to bring Ironhide, Smokescreen, and Punch with me on this mission. And Punch was like, oh yeah, my leg was injured. Can Hotshot go instead? And Ironhide was like, oh yeah, you were walking just fine earlier. And then there was the insignia transition again where it goes from, Punch was the last thing we saw. So it goes from Decepticon to Decepticon again. And of course, because I used the close-up variant, I want the audience to notice it. Right? And here they're talking about Punch and how weird he was acting back at headquarters when he was talking about the encryption keys. So, yeah, and then Optimus is saying, let's not worry about it for now, we have a mission to carry out. And then here's the insignia transition again with the further away variant. But because Counterpunch walked out of the room, or Punch walked out of the room, it transitions from Decepticon to Decepticon again, because we get an actual Decepticon here. But we got an actual Decepticon before, so that's why there is the transition from Decepticon to Decepticon, which is the foreshadowing. And then we get the first fight scene with Rampage and the Autobots, where he is seen, which I'll explain the camera angles in a minute here. He's seen, the Autobots are, they're shooting at him, but they are like, wait, hang on a minute, he's an Autobot though, because he's wearing the Autobot insignia. But he summons the Coneheads. And the Coneheads are kind of serving as a one-off villain to sort of distract us from the main Seekers that are being used for the series, because Rampage was kind of going off on his own after the incident that he had with Hotshot, and he is not exactly affiliated with Starscream just yet, so I needed there to be some Decepticons for the Autobots to fight for a bit while we are establishing the conflict between Rampage and Hotshot. So we're going to have the Coneheads fight the Autobots for this episode, while all of the main Decepticons are completely absent. Impactor's not seen, Starscream and the other Seekers aren't seen, fucking Barricade's not seen, nobody is seen here. It's just the Autobots and the Coneheads and Rampage. And the other ones that we saw in the flashbacks. But those guys don't count because those are background characters anyways. So we have Dirge and Thrust and Ramjet. Here's Thrust, obviously, being the one Decepticon Conehead not to have any fight scene showcase just yet. Let me get another drink of water. Sorry, not really a whole lot for me to talk about. I think originally Rampage was fighting all of them, and 3 just random Decepticons kind of just popped into... 3 random Decepticons just popped in to take them all away. Therefore giving us the conflicts for the next episode. I decided to do it differently this time because Everybody knows who the Coneheads are, but the random Decepticons I used for the first attempt, nobody knew who they were, and they didn't have any dialogue. So, let's give Rampage and, his buddies, the Coneheads, some personality. Even though they're one-off villains, we still like to see that. And then here's another flashback with Hotshot and Crosscut, his commander at the time. I just needed an Autobot to, be the commander, and I didn't have Energon Rodimus. I do want to get him at some point or another, because I just like Rodimus, and, excuse me, I do want to get the Power Links combiner figures from Energon someday, maybe, assuming that there isn't, like, a modern update. And then here's Thrust. He's going to be the one to save Rampage from the fire, because obviously Megatron's dead at this time, and Rampage does not know about Starscream just yet, because he was not summoned by Impactor. And here we have the first confrontation between Hotshot and Rampage, which I'm sure it goes, again, pretty similarly to the conflict that they had in, or the little spat that they had in Armada after Rampage just pushed Sideswipe off of the bridge. So this is my version of that, and then Ironhide, being Ironhide, he's going to break free from Dirge, and then, he kind of gets hot-headed, and then he just fucks himself over. And then we have Rampage. This time he's encouraging Hotshot to join the Decepticons, join him and the Coneheads, and they would conquer Cybertron. But you have Smokescreen and, in a minute, Ironhide saying, don't do it. And they have obviously different ways of doing it. Smokescreen's like encouraging him not to, and Ironhide's being like, oh yeah, I'm going to fuck you up if you do. But Rampage is like, hey, shut up. You're influencing his decision. But it's Optimus, like looking at Optimus, and my apologies for this little editing error here. But it is, looking back at Optimus and realizing, oh yeah, I am fighting for the most well-respected Transformer ever. Why would I abandon this just to be reunited with my one friend who has, he's kind of turned to a dark path. So Rampage doesn't like that, so he shoots Hotshot at point-blank range. He's taking advantage of Hotshot's moment of weakness here, and, he teleports away. So yeah, just a really, really big heel turn for Rampage, and I'll talk about the camera angles in just a minute here, because this played a really important part. Notice how in all of the scenes where Rampage is a Decepticon, he is shown from the right, where the little Decepticon badge on his arm is visible. But in this scene right here, he is shown from the left, before he becomes a Decepticon, where the Decepticon badge is not. I actually stuck that on there to give him some accuracy to the original Armada TV show. I'm kind of bummed out, which I guess with the 5mm port, I'm not surprised that they did this, but I'm kind of bummed that the Decepticon emblem was not there already. I just stuck that on there at the expense of the 5mm port on his right arm, just to give him more show accuracy, and because I needed it for this scene. But yeah, we get the final flashback, and then we get, Hotshot and, the crying and stuff. Like, I needed to really nail, I really need to, hammer that nail in with how much this was really, impacting Hotshot, and how much it was just fucking him up mentally. The fact that, his best friend from before, he had captured, all of his best friends that he'd made friends with now, maybe barring Ironhide, I guess. But this is the beginning of a redemption arc for Ironhide. And definitely more character development on Hotshot's part, where he's like, okay, my old best friend, he's captured my current commander, who I have sacrificed so much to fight for. It's either my best friend or the most well-respected commander I've ever had. What's it going to be? And, Punch is here, and this is important because Punch is the one to help him make that decision. And Punch, as we know, is actually Counterpunch, with all the foreshadowing, all the insignia transitions, all of the suspicion from people, characters like Smokescreen. I almost said people, but they're not actually people. Characters like Smokescreen and, Hotshot in the beginning, with the little roughness that the two of them got off of when they first met. There was a lot of clues to suggest that Counterpunch might actually be... Oh, and the encryption keys from the previous episode. There's a lot of evidence against them, against fucking Counterpunch, to suggest that, he is actually a spy, with the encryption keys especially being in the most recent episode, and the fact that he was supposedly faking an injury. So the fact that, he, of all bots, is giving Hotshot the advice he needs to sort of stand up to Rampage, which was a very traumatic memory for Hotshot, as we saw in the previous episode. The fact that Counterpunch, of all bots, was the one to give Hotshot this advice should really go... this should really speak volumes for how deceptive Counterpunch was in, executing his plan to sort of bring back Hotshot, because Starscream is the only one he's in league with, he should know all about Rampage. That wasn't really anything I expanded on later. I mean, I might do that in a later episode. Quite frankly, I'm not really sure. All I know for certain is that, Starscream and Counterpunch are in league with each other, as we saw in the Getting Into Gear episode, and in the Imposter Syndrome episode from Season 2. And then we get a little scene with Rampage and the Autobots, a little bit of goofy hee-haw stuff to kind of break up the darkness, because we're about to get more flashback scenes with Hotshot and Rampage. I'll talk about that when it comes up. I'm going to get another drink of water. Okay. Excuse me. So, sorry about that. A little bit of, got a little gassy there. Anyways, here is the scene with Hotshot, and yep, here it is. Where this, again, plays out very similarly to Armada, where he's kind of just... Yeah, he's kind of just trying to go back for Rampage, and, Cup, being the commander, he's saying, don't go back out there, because if you do, you're going to be expelled from your unit, you're going to get court-martialed, this is going to happen to you. But Hotshot's like, fuck you, I don't care. I left him in that fire, I need to go get him out. But then when he gets to the exact spot, Rampage is gone. And then what Armada didn't do that I did here was we actually get to see what happens after Hotshot gets to his... once he actually gets back to base, we see Ratchet, and then... Oh, yep, here's Wheeljack, the actual Wheeljack, repairing Hotshot. And we actually get to see, the main commander, Crosscut, expelling Hotshot from the unit because he put his platoon in great danger by going back for Rampage in that fire. He sacrificed his position in this platoon to save Rampage, and as you can see in this episode and the previous one, it didn't really turn out too well for him. So yeah, that's the flashback scene, and I also decided to include Wheeljack to remind the audience, hey, he exists in this series, which is why I am using Rampage's Japanese name. So yeah. There was that flashback scene, and then there was also... are there any more flashback scenes? I don't think so. Yeah, there is just the... What do you call it? There's just the... Yeah, this scene with, just another, little goofy hee-hee-ha-ha moment with Ironhide. Not really much. Just to kind of, break up the... Because in the original scene, I had Rampage taunting the captured Autobots, while Hotshot was being repaired. So I kind of want to do that again, but also giving the Coneheads their own distinct personality, despite not really being much more than background characters. But I also needed a reason for the Autobots to be captured, whereas opposed to the previous attempt where there were just 3 random Decepticons that captured the... Yeah, the 3 random Decepticons just kind of captured the Autobots, and they didn't have any speaking roles, so they didn't really stand out very well. But here we have Counterpunch and the insignia transition. I transitioned it from the Autobot insignia because that was supposed to symbolize, even though the past 3 insignia transitions, the close-up ones, they were supposed to foreshadow the heel turn. This one was supposed to symbolize the the trust that Hotshot actually had in Counterpunch after he gave him that pep talk, the pep talk that he needed to stand up to Rampage, therefore symbolizing the trust that he formed, as opposed to Ironhide, who's been berating him, and ultimately is the one to warn him against walking into the very obvious trap that Counterpunch was setting for Hotshot to walk into, therefore ultimately killing Smokescreen in the process. So yeah, we get some more, we have Optimus sort of offering Rampage a position into the Resistance, kind of showcase the how noble Optimus really is, and kind of showcasing the fact that, oh yeah, even though Rampage is kind of he's kind of being a dumbass, he can still kind of turn this around, and he can still you know, make something good out of his life, because obviously what's following the Decepticons going to do? Nothing. It's just going to be, because obviously he's succumbing to weakness, and obviously, Hotshot leaving him in the fire was a traumatic memory for him, but because he's joining the Decepticons, he's not really doing much with it. And Ironhide, even he's cheering for Hotshot at this point, which can be mistaked as, Ironhide realizes his life depends on Hotshot saving him. So he's kind of just more so appreciative of the fact that Hotshot came to his rescue, which is kind of touched upon in the next episode. But then we have another flashback with Ironhide. Or no, Impactor. Oh, wait, no, yeah, Ironhide as well. Because Ironhide was saying, oh yeah, he's a rookie, he can't do it. But then we also get the flashback with Impactor showcasing, oh yeah, Impactor's advice, even though he is supposedly the Decepticon, is still helping Hotshot. So he deploys the Axel Zuka for the first time, and he's able to use it pretty well against Rampage. But Rampage is, of course, too prideful to accept help from Thrust here. So yeah, they're going at it again and again and again, until eventually Hotshot's going to get super aggressive. He's going to kick Rampage to the ground, and Ironhide's going to be like, kill him, kill him, kill him. But Hotshot realizes that's not the right thing to do. And yeah, there's Rampage lying on the ground. He's saying, kill him, kill him, kill him. And Rampage is being like, I deserve this. Finish me off. But Hotshot's like, nope, you made a decision. You have to live with it, and killing you would just be the easy way out. So yeah, just another showcase of Hotshot and how he has the moral high ground over Rampage just by default because Rampage, if I'm not mistaken, he said he wanted to kill Hotshot. He said he wanted to destroy him. Therefore, saying, what? He needs to pay, and I think the highest form of paying for, leaving me out there is your life and dying, which is obviously why he ultimately joined Starscream at the end of the day. But Hotshot realizes this is wrong, and he's like, you know what? No, there's still plenty of opportunities for you, Rampage, even though you're a Decepticon, to turn your life around. Because if you stay with this, if you stay on this dark path, and if you stay with the Decepticons, you're going to do something that you might regret later. And we'll get to that in a minute, because Rampage does do something even worse than he did in this episode. And that was, of course, kill Smokescreen. So, definitely a little bit of, I'm not sure if this is foreshadowing or what, but, because I'm not sure if this is foreshadowing to Smokescreen's death. It's just more so kind of just setting up the impact for it, I guess. But we have Impactor revealing himself, and then he's actually praising Hotshot for the way he handled the situation, and Hotshot's so taken aback by Impactor actually praising him. Because, like I said before, even though Impactor is, he's posing as a con, he is, he's seeing the growth. He's seeing Hotshot's growth, especially here because Hotshot is standing up to a traumatizing blast from the past, as the title suggests. Hotshot is proudly, taunting Rampage. And then they have their little session at the very end there, where they're talking about how, oh yeah, Rampage took the easy way out. And then it seems for a minute like Hotshot and Ironhide are totally cool with each other for the bear hug scene that you're about to see here. It's almost like, this was a newfound form of respect that Ironhide found for Hotshot, because he was finally able to do something. In the previous episode, he said, until you can do something extremely impressive, you're still just a rookie, just a mere amateur. But that very thing that he was talking about happened here, where Hotshot saved Ironhide from the Coneheads and Rampage. But Hotshot says, hey, can I save Private Tooth Fairy now? And Ironhide goes, no. So they're not totally out of the mist yet, but they are still cool with each other, for the time being at least. At least until next episode. And then we have Rampage joining Starscream, which is just mainly out of spite for Hotshot. We get Thundercracker, suspecting. Thundercracker is the skeptical one of Rampage, even though I feel like this would be more in line with Barricade's character, or at least I would think. But no, I just kind of chose Thundercracker, just because that's who I used last time, and stuff. And then Rampage saying, I want to keep my Autobot emblem as a reminder of why I'm here. because I know I got this injury when Hotshot left me in the fire. Therefore, excuse me, I want a permanent reminder of why I am here. So he's keeping the Autobot emblem. So here is the first little bit of Hotshot and Ironhide, kind of having their bond and stuff. They're kind of arm wrestling, they're getting along. Ironhide's loosening up. And then we have Smokescreen and Punch and stuff, which of course Punch is going to be acting weird because I think he realizes at this point he needs to act fast in order to in order to get Hotshot in a vulnerable state, because Hotshot already trusts Punch enough to the point where he is willing to, go out with Punch alone, which Punch needs him to do, or Counterpunch needs him to do. But he's not really totally trusting of Ironhide just yet, because of everything that Ironhide's put him through during this season, which we're going to see here. And then we have Punch acting kind of weird. In the old attempt, when I used Sideways, I just kind of flashed an image of him as a Decepticon, which I didn't want to do this time. I felt like that was too much of a giveaway, even though it was I think it's pretty obvious at this point that Counterpunch is actually a Decepticon. But still, there's the element of surprise. And, I wanted there to be some kind of element of surprise, even though at this point it's kind of obvious that Counterpunch is a Decepticon, and we're kind of just delaying the inevitable at this point. But I needed to drive a few more points home. I needed to hit a few more points before we did that. Anyways, here's the Decepticon base where they're talking about Rampage. One thing I do want to mention about Rampage, especially introducing him so early into the series, somebody actually asked me, why did you introduce him so early into the series? The reason why is because I needed some kind of really huge obstacle for Hotshot to overcome to really symbolize his character growth, and to, give Counterpunch a reason to really freak the fuck out over, this plan might actually get foiled because of how badly Starscream underestimated Hotshot. So I brought in Rampage, and, I had Rampage be the catalyst for Hotshot trusting Counterpunch, the ultimate Decepticon double agent, again, my version of Sideways. And I needed a reason for Smokescreen's death to hit harder, because Rampage was ultimately the one to kill Smokescreen, as we're going to see here. But we have Soundwave and Ravage and Impactor. They listened to the conversation that the cons were having before about Starscream and how he's not a very good leader at all. It was more so a matter of the cons were actually smarter than Impactor thought. But anyways, we get this scene with Punch and Ironhide. They're having their little encounter at the base, and this is where Ironhide ultimately realizes, Punch is actually a spy, and Mirage, he might have been innocent. Even though we haven't seen Mirage in a while, there was still the Getting Into Gear episode, which establishes the Mirage angle in all of this. Getting Into Gear I feel like works so well because it was mostly flashbacks. Even if it follows Ironhide instead of Hotshot, it still sets up the angle. It still sets up a different angle that we can still wonder about, especially here when they're having their little conversation. And, Punch, he proposes the idea of, we can do a training sequence with Hotshot and maybe Smokescreen, where we can find a nice big open area full of bare ground or something like that. And then Ironhide's like, let me actually go tell them. But Punch is like, no, actually, fuck you, I'll do it. I think he just realized, I might have actually, I might have been a little bit too, I might have let on a little bit strong here, and Ironhide might actually figure it out, and lo and behold, he did. And then this scene right here, the lighting, I actually kind of dimmed it a little bit more when Punch was talking, as opposed to having the entire room illuminated, because I wanted to sort of symbolize the Counterpunch being a Decepticon, even though it was mostly obvious at this point. And then the encryption keys are brought up, and the encryption keys are brought up. Counterpunch says, what if Mirage was never a spy? And Ironhide's like, how would you know that? And then Ironhide questions him about the encryption keys, and Counterpunch gives a complete non-answer. I don't remember what it was right off the top of my head. But that leaves Ironhide thinking, wait, the encryption keys Counterpunch knows about, and he suggested Mirage might be innocent, if Mirage wasn't a spy, who was? And then he has this flashback where Mirage says, I wasn't talking to Starscream, he was. And, he's thinking, if Mirage knows that somebody else was talking, particularly Counterpunch, what could he have done? Like, how did this stuff get into his locker? And he realizes, oh, wait a minute, there was a way. And that was the realization where he was like, okay, yeah, no, he's actually right. Counterpunch is the spy and Mirage is innocent. So he's trying to warn Hotshot before what the cons are talking about actually takes place. So we can see Starscream is hesitant to give Rampage control of the Decepticon army for just one episode, or just for one mission, but Impactor is saying, hey, look on the bright side. If we don't succeed this time, you will be back in charge tomorrow. And obviously that does not really, well, it doesn't go well for Hotshot, actually, because this was ultimately what did him in, and this is ultimately what brought Megatron back. So, Starscream was not in charge tomorrow, as Rampage, and his strategy was ultimately what brought Megatron back. So again, Starscream, he gave up control, and he ended up losing control of the Decepticon army permanently because of his decision to give Rampage control of the Decepticon army for this episode, because this is all Rampage is doing, and because he is the mind behind the madness. He ended up, this was the first time in the entire series as well, where Starscream was like, you know what, somebody else can lead the Decepticons, and this was ultimately the one time, he decided somebody else can have the control of the Decepticon army. This was the one time where, this is the one time where Hotshot loses, and Smokescreen dies, and Megatron is brought back to life. So yeah, just to really drive home the fact that Starscream is an incompetent leader, and to really drive home the fact that none of the Decepticons really trusted him, and how willing they all were to, they seemed skeptical, especially Thundercracker. Yeah, for some reason Thundercracker was the most, he was the most skeptical of Rampage. I'm not really sure why. It was kind of just a random thought that I made. I guess Barricade was as well, but, something else I forgot to mention was Starscream kind of, gives away that, he kind of gives away Counterpunch being a spy when he says one word, informant, and they're all kind of debating amongst themselves because they don't know. Obviously, Starscream did tell them, as Punch is going to reveal later, that he didn't tell Impactor either, and Starscream didn't at least. And then here's the scene where Ironhide warns Hotshot about Counterpunch, which obviously, because he didn't have any proof and because he's been on his high horse about Mirage pretty much ever since it happened. Obviously, Hotshot's not going to believe him. Because, why would he? Ironhide's just been an asshole to him the entire series. And he's been, he hasn't let anybody forget about Mirage. So, obviously, Hotshot's going to be like, whoa, hold up a second. This thing that you have been on your high horse about ever since you told the story, and all of a sudden you're saying, wait a minute, the person that helped you expose him, that's the spy now? This doesn't make any sense. Besides, you're kind of a jerk-off. So, yeah, I'm not going to believe you. And Punch just helped me with this one thing. He helped me overcome my negative experience with Rampage. So why in the hell am I going to trust you, Ironhide? You don't deserve it. Punch does because he helped me overcome a traumatic experience. Which is, I guess, kind of drives home the fact that, or sort of, I guess, the idea of, what was it? Some people don't really help you because they want to actually have your best interest in mind. Some people don't have your best interest in mind. They just want to have power over you because it makes them feel superior, which is absolutely true in this case right here. As you can see, there was a flashback to, Punch, reminding Hotshot, hey, these are your friends. Rampage is not. And there was a line that I think fucking Punch had in the previous episode where he was like, oh yeah, it takes another level of no-good scum to betray the Autobots, which is kind of, the irony here is that he's about to do it in the episode we're going to see in just a moment. But yeah, Hotshot saying, hey, you know what, you are so disingenuous. You were only nice to me because I saved you from Rampage. But Punch was nice to me before, so fuck you, Ironhide. But yeah, Rising Darkness, the penultimate episode of Hotshot Season 1. Excuse me while I go use the restroom. Okay, and we are back with the penultimate episode. I kind of took a little bit of a break. I've been going at this for almost 2 hours now. I might do the Season 2 commentary video a little bit differently than I did with this. But anyways, let's talk. So, what do you call them? We have Red Alert and Optimus kind of just talking about the encryption keys again. And then Ironhide, of course, tries to warn them about Counterpunch. But obviously he does not believe, well, obviously neither of them believe it. Especially because, Ironhide tends to have a really good history with Counterpunch, especially, after boot camp. So, yeah, that is one thing that... Yeah, it's definitely a lot more skepticism around these claims that Ironhide's kind of just throwing out of the blue. So, yeah, everybody's skeptical of Ironhide now, but Optimus and Red Alert were at least willing to sort of, take what he said and do something with it, but they said, there's no reason not to trust him. We're going to let Hotshot, Smokescreen, and Punch do their thing, and we're going to wait for them to get back before we question any of them about this. Especially because they kind of got their hands full with the encryption keys as well. Anyways, here is Rampage. Here's one of the final little funnier moments where they're all trying to push Megatron into the warp gate. Obviously, this Megatron does not fit in the warp gate in either mode. He's too tall and too wide in bot mode, and then, of course, there's his gigantic vehicle mode. And then we have Impactor, would it kill you to say please? And I might make a compilation of Impactor, Decepticon Impactor, just being a straight mood. He's definitely the character I had the most fun writing. But anyways, excuse me. Sorry about that. They get to the bare ground where they're going to be doing their little operation. Everybody's skeptical. Oh yeah, no, Smokescreen and Hotshot are a little bit skeptical, and of course Punch is being extremely, extremely pushy. And then Rampage is here, and then Impactor is like, hey, this is your strategy. You execute this as you see fit. And so Rampage takes a go at it, and of course he hits Smokescreen. I think this was the moment that Impactor realized, oh shit, I've been too convincing. I've been taking my role as a Decepticon a little bit too seriously. And now that Smokescreen is critically injured, and now that he's dead and Megatron's back, I have not done my due diligence as a Autobot double agent. So I think it was this moment when he realized, holy shit, this is actually I probably could have prevented this, but I wasn't able to. So I'm going to join the Autobots now while I still can. And then we have, of course, Punch revealing himself, Rampage and stuff, shooting missiles. And again, Rampage, having him kill Smokescreen was a decision made intentionally, just to symbolize, Hotshot's best friend, Hotshot's best friend, his current best friend, being murdered by his old best friend, to really drive home that, to really drive the impact that Smokescreen's death would have on the audience, if any. And then here's where we get the reveal where we see Counterpunch for the first time, even though actually we don't, because we saw him getting into the gear in the supply closet, I think it was, where he was just seen in the doorway very faintly. But yeah, we get this scene where, there's not really a whole lot that I have to add here. We get this scene with Counterpunch. He's about to turn into a Decepticon, I think right now, I believe. Yeah, he's still talking. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, it was revealed that he was a Decepticon the whole time, and again, I think it was made pretty obvious by the previous episode, but still, I wanted there to be some shock factor behind the reveal of Counterpunch, and so I decided to do that was by having Smokescreen die instead of Hotshot. Obviously, Hotshot's not going to die because he's the main fucking character, and why would I kill off the main character at the end of his first season? So yeah, Smokescreen dies, and another animation error here. The little bottom of the green screen thing is visible, so my apologies about that. But yeah, no, it was sort of... Yeah, not really a whole lot to say. I'm sorry if there is some dead silence. We have Soundwave plugging in the device. And then we're about to have an Energon reference, as somebody pointed out in the comment section. We're about to have an Energon reference with Megatron rising up, and he says the line that he says in the... I think it was episode 6, where he goes, I am back. So yeah, that was a pretty, that was a referential thing with, the vehicle mode and the usage of the Energon version of Megatron. And because he is back and because he's towering over everybody, I was trying to make him as scary as possible. I believe this is the transition of Starscream being kind of like the main big bad authority character to the butt monkey character. As we saw in episodes 14 and 15, there's the Soundwave smack Starscream gag. And we have Smokescreen being shoved to the side here. And we have a speech. Megatron just kind of, asserting himself as that Decepticon leader that we all know him and love him to be. And then Starscream, of course, he's begging Megatron for... he wants credit because he wants Megatron to, I guess, serve under him or something, but Megatron's not buying it because he knows that, Starscream has a history of being a conniving little fuck. Even though, none of it's, really shown. It's obvious that Starscream is, he's kind of a conniving little shithead, and Megatron's like, hey, you better stay in line this time, otherwise your world is going to be turned upside down. As we saw in Impactor Secret, he was demoted from Vice Commander. Of course, the cons are laughing at him. And Rampage, being an Autobot, and still kind of having that Autobot influence on him, he's like, this is kind of hard to watch. Starscream is, he's being humiliated, which for Rampage is kind of hard to watch because, him being an Autobot and stuff. But then Barricade, because he's a heartless Decepticon, he's like, yeah, no it isn't. Because, none of them like Starscream. And so, for him to be the Decepticon leader for all this time and to get absolutely no credit or recognition for it from Megatron when he returns, it's just kind of satisfying for most of them to watch, except for Impactor, because he just watched one of his Autobot comrades die. He's probably thinking right now, how could I have prevented this? Which I'm not sure where I'm going to take the Impactor storyline just yet, but, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with Impactor now that he's an Autobot. But what I do know is that, the Autobots here are having some trouble with all of their systems and stuff because obviously Punch bottlenecked it with the little encryption thing that you're going to see in the next episode, the little Decepticon key that you're going to see in the next episode. Counterpunch bottlenecked all of their technology, so obviously they are not going to... They're not going to have any immediate answers because they're having trouble with everything, which is why they're trying to call Cybertron Intel to get some information on the case. But yeah, we're going to have Ironhide, and he's going to be looking for Hotshot. And there's another scene that I'm going to talk about in just a minute here. But for now, not really a whole lot to say here. And it's just more so of they're just concerned about Hotshot. And I think he's going to transform in a minute here. It's kind of a longish talk sequence. I'm going to try and see what I can do to minimize these really long talk sequences. I don't know. Yep, here we go. And here's the scene. It's coming up. The scene with Mirage running away from Sentinel. Just to sort of remind the audience that, oh yeah, Mirage is still on the loose, and right now he's suspected to be a Decepticon. He's suspected to be working with the Decepticons still because he was supposedly caught in boot camp. We have Warpath from the boot camp episode, and then we have Energon Ironhide, who I renamed Roadbuster. Just another classic case of taking the Japanese name and attributing it to, because we have this version of, we have Energon Ironhide, who is known as Roadbuster, and then we also have, Ironhide from G1. So yeah, we can't have two Ironhides, so for all intents and purposes, Energon Ironhide is going to be Roadbuster. And then we're also going to have another referential thing in a minute here. When Mirage gets taken to jail, he is sharing a cell with Wasp. As you guys have probably figured out by now, Mirage is my version of Wasp, or at least he's serving a similar role as Wasp from Animated. Here is Wasp, and Sentinel Prime's going to chuck him in the cell with Wasp. One thing I do want to point out is I did not have an establishing shot for the Cybertron's maximum security prison, so that's kind of why it cut straight to the jail cell. I also kind of just used the props I had at the time, so big thank you to TF War Chronicles for giving me those images that I was able to create my establishing shot for the Cybertron prison. Definitely very much appreciated. Alrighty, and we are back. I apologize about that. I wasn't feeling well in the last half of that recording, so I decided to put a pin in it and return to the commentary video at a later date. I was planning on doing it all in one sitting, but apparently sitting in your chair in front of your computer talking for 2 straight hours with no breaks is not such a good idea. So I will be definitely doing the commentary video for Season 2 a lot differently than I did for this. But anyways, we have the classic opening of the final episode with... It's continuing where the previous episode left off with Sentinel and Warpath and Mirage. You know, they're going to the security prison and Ironhide's right there. It's just a classic case of, you know, if fucking Ironhide showed up maybe like a second later, he probably would have gotten a chance to tell Sentinel, hey, Mirage is innocent. Granted, I don't know if Sentinel would have believed him, probably not, because, you know, Sentinel was there too when Mirage was initially exposed, and I say exposed in air quotes, because we all know that the spy was actually Counterpunch. And now we have this establishing shot with Megatron and the rest of the Decepticons. And, I mean, there's not really a whole lot to say about this other than we're going to get maybe like another angle to the little feud going on between Hotshot and Rampage. Especially with Megatron back and how he's saying, oh yeah, you know, it was Smokescreen's fault because he initially wanted to... You know, he wanted to blindly follow the wisdom of the Autobots, therefore it's his fault that he died. Because the teachings of the Autobots are corrupt. And if he follows them, then he's not going to... Well, he could have chosen a life of, like, eternal power. He could have chosen a life where he has control over others and, you know, he never dies. And, you know, everybody fears him, but instead he chose to give his life for Hotshot. In Megatron's eyes, that is a waste of a life. And then there he is, grayed out again. So, yeah, not really a whole lot to say. The dialogue, I think, kind of speaks for itself, but, you know, you can't hear the dialogue right now. It's all just a classic... It's the classic two friends that aren't friends anymore. You know, they have a falling out because, you know, they don't see eye to eye anymore. You know, obviously Rampage thinks that fighting with honor and justice and whatever the Autobots believe in is the... He thinks it's wrong because in his experience he was left to die, in air quotes, by Hotshot in that battle that we saw in the Blast from the Past episode, when in actuality... And then, again, if you've seen the original Armada show as well, it kind of went very similar to this. You would know that, oh yeah, Hotshot didn't actually leave him to die. He went to go get help. But because Rampage was... because he was rescued by the Decepticons and manipulated by the Decepticons into thinking, oh yeah, you know, the Autobots are corrupt. They say these things, but they actually mean another. I mean, they try to virtue signal as the good guys when in actuality they're just as corrupt as they think we are. And then Rampage brought in... he bought into that propaganda, and then he joined the Decepticons. So yeah, it just made sense for me for Rampage to be the... It made sense for Rampage to be the one to ultimately bring Megatron back to life, or fire the shot that ended Smokescreen's life, therefore allowing the cons to bring Megatron back. So that is why I introduced Wheeljack / Rampage so early into the series, even though in Armada he kind of came at the tail end, if you think about it. He came more so at the beginning of the latter half. So yeah. But hey, we don't get sideswiped from this, so there's something. And then here's the scene at the Autobot base where we find the... I think it's the tracking device, the little Decepticon tracking chip in the main generator room. I actually did not know what I was going to use. So that door that you see over to the left of the computer, I actually didn't know what I was going to do. It was mainly just there for... Excuse me. It was mainly just there to be there, honestly, so that way there wouldn't be like too much of a bland background. I wanted to give a little bit of variety. I wasn't exactly sure what that door was going to lead to until I decided in this video here, you know what, it's going to lead to like an internal like generator room. I wanted to connect it to the, you know, the little like hangout room that the Autobots have with the traffic lights and the street signs and stuff like that. I wanted it to link to that. Sorry about that. I don't know if you all saw, but my... Windows Media Player just minimized all by itself. But anyways, I wanted that room to connect to the little hangout room that the Autobots have with the street signs and the traffic lights and stuff like that. But I couldn't really figure out how, and every time I opened the door, there would be, you know, there'd be stuff, you know, in there because this is all against my bed, and there's stuff under the bed that I don't want you guys to see. Other than like my arts and crafts box and stuff like that. Because the reason why the old channel didn't really work out is because it was obvious that the series was being filmed in my bedroom, and scenery was kind of just an afterthought. As opposed to this, where scenery was kind of like my main concern, well, as well as the characters not sounding similar to each other because I voiced all of them. So yeah, that's kind of mindset that I had at designing some of the scenery, and you can't really tell that it's in my bedroom, until like one of the doors open and you can see like some of my bins under the bed and stuff like that. I think my arts and crafts bin kind of showed up a few times whenever the door would open. So yeah, the doors definitely don't open very often, at least I don't think. I actually am probably going to do a video because I had some people on a Discord server. They were saying something about the Five Nights at Freddy's inspired door panel, which I guess we'll talk about that as well while we're waiting for the final fight scene with Megatron and Hotshot. So the Five Nights at Freddy's door panel was just because it's as simple as I just like the door panel. I think it's really simple. You have the door, you have the light, as opposed to like all these little buttons that you normally see in all these sort of sci-fi, like sort of fan-made projects. I decided that I was going to just keep it simple and especially keep it referential because I really like Five Nights at Freddy's and I really like the sound effects. Maybe I'll do a FNAF video at some point or another. But anyways, back to the main topic at hand. We have fucking Megatron torturing Hotshot, and Impactor's gonna save him. So this is another little bit of indication that, Impactor might actually be working for the Autobots, because, why would he go and save Hotshot like this? So what do we have for Impactor so far? We have what was it? Oh yeah, we have the fact that he could have destroyed him several times while he had him on the ropes, and he didn't, so that's number one. Number two was all the advice that he gives Hotshot that's actually helping him despite him being the enemy so-and-so. And then we have this as well, where he actively saves Hotshot from being destroyed by Megatron, even though he is totally like in a vulnerable position, and he totally has Hotshot. Like, I mean, think about it. Counterpunch is a Decepticon and Smokescreen's dead. Who's going to come save him? But anyways, we have the fight scene that's about to... occur, where Impactor is, he's helping Hotshot out. Now, I do want to talk about this fight scene. For those of you who have seen the movie Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, or read the book, more specifically the latter, actually, because Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire is my favorite book of all time. I'm not much of a reader, thanks a lot to, middle school, elementary school requiring it as part of, like... They had it as, like, fucking 60% of my grade for, like, some asinine reason. And that was just... I immediately hated reading ever since then because there was such a big like emphasis on reading, and I think it's just a matter of, oh yeah, if you force me to do it, I'm not going to want to do it, which is why I like willingly want to do certain things. Like I want to play more video games, stuff like that, even though people say video games rot your brain. Well, I just wanted to do that because it wasn't reading, and everybody says reading's good for you. But yeah. Anyways, this entire scene was mostly inspired by Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. It's a great book, not so great of a movie, except for the very final scene at the end where Harry Potter battles Voldemort, which is what this scene is inspired by. But yeah, we have this scene right here with Megatron, and we're about to get this scene with Smokescreen in Hotshot Self-Conscious, which again was inspired by Harry Potter. The scene where Voldemort and Harry's their spells kind of like come together and they do the crazy thing. And all the sort of like ghosts come back and they tell Harry, you've got to get out of here. You've got to get out. Cedric Diggory and all that. But yeah, definitely some great stuff. And then here's Smokescreen. Just not really a whole lot to say about this. Originally he was going to be like a head in a void, but I thought that was kind of stupid. I just thought it would work better if it was in Hotshot Self-Conscious, just to have him, he's really close to death and stuff, so he's going to have a hallucination about Smokescreen. Yeah, not really a whole lot to say about this, other than the obvious comparison to Harry Potter. And here he is on the ground. And then Impactor's about to help him up. Yep, there we go. So yeah, another thing that Impactor did that would suggest he's not really in, and then he's like, oh, how silly of me. And here comes Counterpunch reminding him of, oh yeah, we actually have the coordinates to the Autobot base and we know where they are, and I actually deactivated the security. And then Starscream's like, oh yeah, because I planted him there, hoping that Megatron will give him credit, but of course he never does. And then, as I said before, this might have been Impactor's moment of, oh, holy shit, I actually, like, I was such a convincing Decepticon that Smokescreen got killed, and the Autobots, the bots I'm actually working for, their location's compromised now. So, I guess joining the Autobots will be my way of making up for it or something like that. I'm not really sure. I'm not sure how I'm going to really delve into Impactor's character in the future. I haven't really thought that far ahead. Granted, there are some stuff that I want him to do in the second season now that he's an Autobot. But we have Hotshot kind of... Now, this is one of the things that wasn't inspired by Harry Potter. In the source material, he takes a port key back to Hogwarts. But because I didn't really want to have him teleport... And originally, I had Hotshot teleport, but I thought that was going to be too similar to Harry Potter for one, and for two, it would have been a complete ass pull. It would have been a Deus Ex Machina. It would have been something, and I just couldn't really think of an explanation that would have made sense. So yeah, we have this scene right here with Hotshot and Red Alert, and he's like, Megatron's back, but obviously nobody believes him. And yeah, they're about to pop up in just a second here. All right, here we go. The cons all pop up, and they're all there, and they're like, holy shit, Megatron really is back. It's to have all the cons just kind of appear out of nowhere, and here he is, and then Terra by Night plays again, and that's the end of Season 1. That's a complete wrap. So, yep, and to be continued. So, on that note, I just want to thank everybody who has stuck with me throughout the series. I also want to thank everybody who has shown me support for the first few episodes of the second season. It is very much appreciated. I have a lot more plans on what I'm going to be doing for the second season. I've got a whole bunch of different story arcs written out. It's just a matter of, getting it out in an efficient manner, and just having a good time. I think at the end of the day, it's all about having a good time. I'm really enjoying bringing the series to you, and all the comments, all of the likes, everybody tuning in every time I upload one of these. That's the inspiration that keeps this series alive. This is what's making it possible. Like, I would not have this. I would not be doing this series if it was not for all of the support that I've been getting from all of the viewers and all of the comments and all of the likes. So thank you. Let me know what you think about this commentary video, and if you want me to do another one of these for the second season as well. I'm really looking forward to hearing your guys' feedback, and I'm really looking forward to all of the comments as well. So thank you guys very much once again for walking. Sorry. I'm going to go on a walk after this, so I kind of got walking on the mind. But thank you, everybody, for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.